What if Harry Potter awakened Dragon Soul? Ghost Father guided him. Hello guys, welcome to Soul Fiction. So in this video, we will see, what if Harry Potter awakened Dragon Soul? Ghost Father guided him. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, The Space Between Heartbeats. Vernon's fist connected with Harry's ribs for the third time, and something cracked. Not just bone. Something deeper. Harry felt it give way inside him like a door torn off rusted hinges, and the pain that followed wasn't normal pain. It was hot. Wrong. It spread through his chest like someone had poured boiling water directly into his bloodstream. "You'll learn," Vernon was saying, but his voice sounded far away now, muffled, like Harry had cotton stuffed in his ears. "You'll bloody well learn to keep your freakishness to yourself." Another kick. Harry's vision went white, then black, then white again. He was on the floor of the cupboard. No, wait, Vernon had dragged him into the kitchen. The tile was cold against his cheek. He could see the leg of Aunt Petunia's favorite chair, could see Dudley's fat ankles in the doorway where his cousin watched with that piggy gleam in his eyes. Harry tried to breathe. Couldn't. His chest wouldn't expand right. Something was broken in there, really broken, and the heat was getting worse. "Vernon." Petunia's voice, sharp with something that might have been concern if Harry believed she was capable of it. "Vernon, he's not, he's turning colors." "Good. Little freak deserves." Harry stopped hearing them. The kitchen disappeared. Not gradually, not like falling asleep, but all at once like someone had flipped a switch. 1 second he was on cold tile watching his own blood drip from somewhere on his face, and the next he was standing in darkness so complete it felt solid. He wasn't hurting anymore. That was the first thing he noticed. His ribs didn't ache, his face didn't throb, that terrifying heat in his chest had faded to something almost pleasant. Warm, not burning. About bloody time. Harry spun. Or tried to. Moving in this darkness was strange, like pushing through water that wasn't wet. But he managed to turn enough to see, a man stood there. Tall, thin, with messy black hair that stuck up at angles Harry recognized from his own mirror. The man wore round glasses and a crooked smile that didn't reach his eyes. His edges were blurry, indistinct, like someone had drawn him and then smudged the lines. "You know," the man said, "I've been trying to get your attention for 6 years. Took you nearly dying to finally hear me. Bit dramatic, but I suppose that's the Potter way." Harry opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. Your father. James Potter. Currently dead, obviously, but that's less permanent than people think. At least for me. James crouched down to Harry's level, and this close Harry could see that his eyes weren't quite right either. They had depth that normal eyes didn't, like windows looking into somewhere very far away. "We don't have much time, so I'm going to skip the emotional reunion and get to the important bit. You're dying." What? Dying? Right now. That walrus broke something important and your body's giving up. James said it matter-of-factly, like he was discussing the weather. "You've got maybe 3 minutes before your heart stops. For if you're lucky, which you're not, historically speaking." Harry's brain felt like it was moving through mud. "But I feel fine." "That's because you're not in your body right now. You're in here." James tapped his own chest. "The space between heartbeats. The place where Potters go when death gets too close. It's a family thing. Bit complicated to explain, massively dangerous, and also our only shot at keeping you alive." "I don't understand." "You don't need to understand. You need to choose." James stood up, and the darkness around them shifted. Rippled. Like something massive had moved in deep water. "There's something inside you, Harry. Something old. It's been sleeping in our bloodline for generations, passed down through blood and magic and something even older than both. It woke up when Voldemort tried to kill you. It's been waiting ever since. The ripple came again. Closer this time. Harry felt heat brush against his back. The dragon soul, James said. That's what the old texts called it. Power from an age when wizards didn't wave little sticks around, they commanded fire itself. It can save your life. It wants to save your life. But it doesn't come free. What's the cost? James's smile turned sharp. No idea. Different for everyone who's carried it. Some went mad. Some became tyrants. Some burned so bright they forgot they'd ever been human at all. He shrugged. But dying's pretty permanent too, so. Your call. The heat was definitely closer now. Harry could feel it pressing against his spine, patient and hungry and impossibly vast. It didn't feel threatening, exactly. It felt like it was waiting for permission. You're my father, Harry said slowly. You're supposed to protect me. Tell me what to do. I'm dead, Harry. I couldn't protect you from the Dursleys for 6 bloody years. I couldn't protect you when that madman pointed his wand at your mother. I couldn't protect you from any of it. James's voice didn't crack, but something in his expression did. Just for a second. All I can do now is tell you the truth. If you accept this, everything changes. You won't be normal. You won't be safe. You'll have power that people will kill for, will die for, will tear the world apart to either control or destroy. Is that what you want? Harry thought about the cupboard. The locks on the door. Dudley's fists and Vernon's belt and Petunia's cold eyes that looked right through him like he wasn't even there. He thought about being hungry, being scared, being so alone that he'd started talking to spiders just to hear something answer back. He thought about 3 more minutes of life, and then nothing. Yes. The word came out quiet, but the darkness heard it. The heat heard it. Something massive shifted behind Harry, and when he turned around this time, he saw it. Eyes. That was all he could make out in the darkness, eyes like furnaces, like molten gold, like the heart of a star condensed into something living. They were enormous, each one bigger than Harry's entire body, and they looked at him with an intelligence so vast and alien that he nearly screamed. But he didn't. Because under the alienness, under the fire and the ancient weight of all that power, Harry felt something else. Recognition. The eyes blinked. Once, slow. And then Harry was burning. He came back to his body all at once, and it was exactly as terrible as James had warned him. His ribs were still broken, his face was still bleeding, and Vernon was still standing over him with that vein pulsing in his forehead. But the heat was back too. Don't know what game you think you're playing, Vernon was saying, reaching down to grab Harry's collar, but I'll beat it out of you if I have to, His hand touched Harry's shirt and stopped. Harry watched his uncle's expression change. Watched the anger drain out of it, replaced by confusion, then disbelief, then something Harry had never seen on Vernon Dursley's face before. Fear. Vernon. Petunia's voice had gone high and thin. Vernon, his eyes, Harry didn't know what his eyes looked like. Didn't care. He was too focused on the feeling spreading through his body, the way his broken ribs were shifting back into place with grinding pops that should have hurt but didn't, the way his skin was knitting itself together like someone was sewing him up from the inside. He stood up. Vernon stumbled backward, knocking into the kitchen counter. Dudley had vanished from the doorway. Harry could hear his heavy footsteps thundering up the stairs. Petunia pressed herself against the wall, both hands over her mouth. You, Harry said, and his voice sounded strange. Layered. Like someone else was speaking with him. You've been hurting me for 6 years. Now see here, Vernon's voice cracked. I was just, discipline, you needed, I was 5 years old when you started. Harry took a step forward. The tile under his foot cracked. He didn't look down. I was 5, and you broke my arm, and you told everyone I fell down the stairs. Do you remember? It was an accident. You locked me in the cupboard for 3 days without food after. Do you remember? Vernon's back hit the counter. He had nowhere else to go. Harry felt the heat building in his chest, felt it pushing up through his throat, and part of him wanted to let it out. Wanted to see what would happen if he stopped holding back, if he just let go and let the fire do what fire did. But another voice cut through the burning. Not yet. James materialized beside him, not visible to the Dursleys, Harry somehow knew, but clear as day to him. His father's ghost looked at Vernon with an expression of pure disgust, then turned to Harry. I know you want to. Believe me, I've wanted to kill them for years. Watching them hurt you while I couldn't do anything was, James stopped. Took what would have been a breath if he'd still had lungs. But if you kill them now, you become a murderer at 7 years old. The Ministry will find out. Dumbledore will find out. Everything falls apart before it even begins. They deserve it. They deserve worse than anything you could do to them. But that's not the point. The point is what you deserve, and that's a future. A real one. Not rotting in Azkaban because you couldn't wait 10 more years to burn these people to ash. Harry's hands were shaking. The heat in his chest was a living thing now, demanding release, and every second he held it back felt like trying to stop an avalanche with his bare hands. What do I do? Scare them. Don't kill them. Make them understand that hurting you is no longer an option. Then we get you somewhere safe for the night while your body finishes healing. James looked at Vernon, who was still frozen against the counter, sweat pouring down his face. He's a coward. Cowards are easy. You don't have to hurt him, you just have to make him believe you could. Harry breathed in. Breathed out. Let the fire settle, not disappear but bank itself like coals waiting to be stoked. Then he smiled. Vernon made a sound like a dying animal. Uncle Vernon, Harry said pleasantly. I'm going to explain something to you once. Just once. I want you to listen very carefully, because I won't explain it again. W.H. Watt, you're not going to hit me anymore. Not ever. You're not going to lock me in the cupboard, or starve me, or call me freak, or any of the other things you've done since I was a baby. Harry tilted his head, still smiling. The heat was right there, right under the surface, and he let just a flicker of it show in his eyes. Do you know why? Vernon shook his head frantically. Because if you do, Harry said, I'll kill you. I'll wait until you're asleep, and I'll walk into your room, and I'll do to you what you just tried to do to me. Except I'll finish the job. He leaned in closer, close enough to smell Vernon's fierce sweat, close enough to see his own reflection in his uncle's wide eyes. And then I'll kill Aunt Petunia. And then I'll kill Dudley. And by the time anyone finds your bodies, I'll be long gone, and no one will ever know what happened here. You can't, you're just I'm not just anything. Harry let the fire rise again, just for a second, just enough to make his skin glow faintly gold in the kitchen's fluorescent light. Not anymore. Petunia was crying. Vernon looked like he might have a heart attack right there against the counter. Harry felt nothing for either of them. No pity, no satisfaction, nothing but cold, clear certainty. They wouldn't hurt him again. He'd made sure of it. Now, Harry said, stepping back, letting the glow fade. I'm going to need a few things. First, you're going to give me Dudley's second bedroom. Tonight. The cupboard is done. Second, you're going to feed me the same food you feed yourselves, no more scraps, no more starving. Third, you're going to leave me alone. No chores, no insults, no nothing. I'm a ghost in this house from now on. I don't exist unless I want to exist. Do you understand? Vernon nodded so hard his chins wobbled. Good. Now go upstairs and tell Dudley to move his garbage out of that room. I want it empty in an hour. Vernon fled. Literally ran out of the kitchen like something with teeth was chasing him, his footsteps pounding up the stairs with almost as much panic as Dudley's had. Petunia was still frozen against the wall. Harry looked at her. Really looked at her, for maybe the first time in his life. She'd always been a collection of sharp angles and disapproving sniffs to him, more like a particularly unpleasant piece of furniture than a person. But now he could see the way her hands shook, the way her eyes kept darting to the cracked tile where he'd stood, the way she seemed to be trying to make herself smaller. "You were her sister," Harry said quietly. "My mother. You grew up together. She loved you." Petunia flinched. "I used to wonder how you could do it. How you could look at her son and treat him like garbage. Like I wasn't even human." Harry shook his head. "I don't wonder anymore. I don't care anymore. But I want you to know something." He walked past her toward the hallway, toward the stairs, toward his new room. At the doorway, he stopped. "If she could see what you've done to me, she'd never forgive you. And I think you know that. I think it's been eating at you for 6 years. Harry, don't say my name." He didn't turn around. "You don't get to say my name. Not after everything. Just, leave me alone. That's all I want from you. Just leave me alone, and maybe I won't tell anyone what happened in this house. Maybe." He climbed the stairs. Behind him, he heard Petunia slide down the wall, heard her start to sob, and felt nothing at all. The bedroom was still full of Dudley's broken toys and cast-off clothes when Harry pushed open the door, but Vernon was already stuffing things into garbage bags with frantic energy. He froze when he saw Harry. I'm almost, give me 10 more minutes, take your time," Harry said, because he could afford to be magnanimous now. He was in control. For the first time in his entire life, he was the one with power. "I'll wait in the hall." Vernon worked faster. James appeared beside Harry, leaning against the hallway wall with his arms crossed. "That was well done. Maybe a bit much with the murder threats, but they'll remember it. Fear is a good teacher. Is this really happening?" Harry kept his voice low, barely a whisper. "Are you really here?" "Yes. Permanently?" "Also yes, unfortunately for both of us. The same magic that let the dragon soul save your life tied me to you more firmly than I was before. I'm not going anywhere." "Were you always watching? All this time?" James's expression flickered. "Yes. And you couldn't do anything. Ghosts can't interact with the physical world." "Not really. I could scream until my non-existent throat was raw and you'd never hear me. I could beat my fists bloody against your uncle's face and he'd never feel a thing. All I could do was wait and watch and hope that something would change." He met Harry's eyes. "Something did. Because I almost died. Because you almost died, and the dragon soul decided you were worth saving. It doesn't do that for everyone, you know. Most Potters never even know it exists. It just sleeps. Waits. Passes from generation to generation without ever waking up. The last time it fully manifested was 300 years ago. What happened to that person?" James was quiet for a long moment. "He conquered most of Eastern Europe before the combined magical governments of the continent put him down. Took 200 wizards working together to manage it." Harry processed this. "So you're saying I have the power of a guy who took on 200 wizards and almost won?" "I'm saying you have the potential for that power. Right now you're 7 years old and you've had exactly one supernatural experience. There's a very long road between here and there, and most of it involves training so brutal you'll wish Vernon was hitting you again. That's a bit dramatic." "It's really not." James pushed off from the wall. "The dragon soul is a tool, Harry. A weapon. But weapons don't aim themselves. If you don't learn to control this power, it'll control you, and trust me when I say you don't want that. I've seen what happens when carriers lose control. It's not pretty." Vernon stumbled out of the bedroom carrying 3 overstuffed garbage bags. He didn't look at Harry. Didn't even slow down. Just hurried past toward Dudley's room, where presumably the broken toys were going to live now. Harry walked into his new bedroom. It smelled like Dudley, sweat and chocolate and that particular staleness of a room that had never been properly aired out. The bed was too big, covered in stained sheets that probably hadn't been washed in months. The walls were bare where Dudley had ripped down posters, leaving faded rectangles of cleaner paint. It was still the nicest place Harry had ever had to himself. He sat down on the bed. The mattress creaked under his weight, springs poking through the padding in places, but it was still softer than the cot in the cupboard had ever been. "What now?" he asked. "Now we wait." James materialized again, this time sitting in the desk chair that Dudley had probably never used for actual schoolwork. "Your body's still healing from the awakening. It'll take a few hours for the process to finish. You'll feel strange, hot, mostly. Maybe some muscle cramps. Try to sleep through the worst of it. And tomorrow? Tomorrow we start training. Real training, not the garbage they teach at primary school. I'm going to teach you how to fight, how to think, how to hide what you are from people who would kill you just for existing. I'm going to turn you into something that never has to be afraid again." Harry lay back on the bed. The ceiling had water stains and patterns that almost looked like faces. "Will it hurt?" "Yes. Every day. Most of them." Harry thought about the cupboard. The darkness. The locks. "Good," he said. And closed his eyes. He woke to fire. Not real fire, there were no flames licking at his bedsheets, no smoke filling his lungs, but his entire body felt like it was burning from the inside out. Every muscle, every bone, every inch of skin was screaming at him, and Harry had to shove his pillow over his face to muffle the sounds that came out of his throat. "I know," James's voice came from somewhere nearby. "I know it hurts. This is the awakening completing itself. The dragon soul is rewriting your body on a fundamental level. Making you stronger, faster, more durable. It's like puberty, except all at once and about 1,000 times more painful." Harry couldn't respond. Could barely think. The fire was everywhere, consuming everything, and some distant part of him wondered if this was what dying felt like after all, if the dragon soul had lied, if something cracked. Not inside his chest this time, but inside his mind. The pain vanished. Harry lay there, gasping, sweat soaking through his shirt and pooling on Dudley's unwashed sheets. His heart was pounding so hard he could feel it in his temples, his fingertips, his toes. But the fire was gone. No. Not gone. Controlled. He could feel it now, banked behind his ribs like a second heartbeat. A reservoir of heat that belonged to him, responded to him, wanted to be used. When he focused on it, really concentrated, he could almost see it, a golden glow pulsing in time with his breath. "How do you feel?" Harry sat up slowly. His body moved differently now. Smoother. More precise. When he raised his hand in front of his face, he could see faint traces of gold threading through the veins under his skin, there and gone so fast he might have imagined it. "Strong," he said. "I feel strong." "Good. Because it's 3 in the morning and no one else in this house is awake, which means we can get started." "Started with what?" James grinned, and for just a second Harry could see the prankster his father must have been in life, the guy who hexed Slytherins and ran with werewolves and laughed in the face of Dark Lords. "With making sure you never almost die in a kitchen again. Come on. We've got work to do." The backyard of number 4 Privet Drive was small, hemmed in by fences and overlooked by neighbors, but at 3 in the morning no one was watching. Harry stood on the patchy grass in his bare feet, still wearing the 2 large pajamas he'd found in Dudley's discarded pile, and wondered what he'd gotten himself into. "First things first," James said, circling him slowly. "The dragon soul gives you physical enhancement. Strength, speed, reflexes, the works. But enhancement doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to use it. Most people, when they suddenly become 3 times stronger than they were, end up hurting themselves more than their enemies. They don't know how to control their movements. They're clumsy. And you're going to teach me not to be clumsy? I'm going to teach you to fight properly. Not the playground shoving you've done with Dudley, not the desperate flailing you did when Vernon hit you. Real combat. The kind they teach horrors. The kind they teach hit wizards. The kind that keeps you alive when someone's trying to kill you. You were an Auror. James's expression flickered. I was training to be one. The war got in the way. But I learned enough before I died, and I'll teach you everything I know. He stopped circling. Throw a punch. What? Throw a punch. At that fence post. As hard as you can. Harry looked at the fence post. It was old wood, weathered and gray, the kind that would probably give him splinters if he touched it wrong. But James was watching him with an expectant expression, so Harry wound up and swung. His fist went through the post like it wasn't even there. Harry stumbled, overbalanced by the total lack of resistance he'd expected. His knuckles had punched clean through the wood, leaving a hole the size of his forearm, and he could see Mrs. Next Door's garden through the gap. Holy, and that's the problem. James didn't sound impressed. You just destroyed a fence because you couldn't control your own strength. If that had been a person, you'd have killed them. Not injured them, killed them. Punched right through their chest and out the other side. Harry pulled his hand back slowly. His knuckles weren't even scraped. The first lesson is control. Not power, control. You need to be able to hit something exactly as hard as you want to hit it. Light enough to tap a friend on the shoulder without breaking their collarbone. Hard enough to punch through a brick wall if you need to. And everything in between. How do I learn that? Practice. Lots and lots of practice. James gestured at the fence. You're going to spend the rest of tonight hitting things. Different surfaces, different angles, different amounts of force. By dawn, I want you to be able to knock on a door without putting your fist through it. That's it. Just hitting things. That's the first hour. After that, we move on to kicks. Then movement, learning to walk again, basically, because your legs are stronger than they were, and if you run full speed you'll probably crash into a wall before you figure out how to stop. Then balance. Then, I get it. There's a lot. There's everything, Harry. Everything you've ever learned about how your body works is wrong now. You're starting from scratch, and you don't have the luxury of taking your time. In 4 years, you'll be going to Hogwarts. In 4 years, you'll be surrounded by wizards who want to use you, control you, or kill you, sometimes all 3. We have 4 years to turn you into something that can survive that. Harry looked at the hole in the fence. At his unmarked knuckles. At the faint golden glow he could just barely see threading through his veins. Then we should probably stop talking and start practicing. James smiled. And for the next 4 hours, Harry learned what pain really meant. By the time the sun came up, Harry could knock on a door. Not perfectly, his first 3 attempts had cracked the wood, and his 4th had been so light the sound was barely audible, but eventually he found the middle ground. The exact amount of force needed to make a normal knocking sound, no more and no less. It was exhausting. Not physically, his enhanced body didn't tire the way his old one had, but mentally. Every single action required conscious thought now. Walking required focus. Picking things up required focus. He'd accidentally crushed a rock to powder just by gripping it too tightly, and that had led to another hour of exercises designed to calibrate his hands. But he was learning. And more importantly, he wasn't helpless anymore. The Dursleys were awake now. Harry could hear them moving around inside the house, the usual morning sounds of breakfast being made and telly being turned on. He waited in the backyard until James told him to go inside, and then he walked through the back door into the kitchen. All three of them froze. Petunia stood at the stove, spatula in hand, a pan of eggs and bacon sizzling in front of her. Vernon sat at the table, newspaper hiding most of his face, but Harry could see his fingers white-knuckled on the edges. Dudley was already eating, bits of sausage smeared around his mouth, but his fork had stopped halfway to his lips. "Good morning," Harry said pleasantly. No one answered. He walked to the table. Pulled out a chair. Sat down. "I'll have some eggs, please. And bacon. And toast, if there's any." Petunia moved like a marionette with half its strings cut, jerky and uncoordinated, but she put together a plate and brought it to him with trembling hands. Harry took a bite of the eggs. They were actually cooked properly, not burnt to charcoal like the ones she usually gave him. "These are good," he said. "Thank you." Petunia made a sound like a whimper and retreated to the stove. Vernon lowered his newspaper slowly. His face was pale, bags under his eyes suggesting he hadn't slept well. Good. Harry hoped he'd had nightmares. "Boy," Vernon started. "Harry," Harry corrected. "My name is Harry. You can use it or you cannot talk to me at all. Your choice." Vernon's jaw worked like he was chewing on something unpleasant. "Harry. We should discuss." "There's nothing to discuss. I told you what I wanted last night. Room, food, privacy. That's it. Everything else stays the same. You pretend I don't exist, I pretend you don't exist, and everyone's happy. And if we don't, then I stop pretending." Harry smiled. It felt strange on his face, that expression. Alien. He'd never had much reason to smile before. "You don't want that. Trust me." Vernon opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. "The room's yours," he finally muttered. And food. Whatever. Just stay away from us. That's the plan." Harry finished his breakfast in silence. Dudley never once looked up from his plate, eating mechanically, like if he just kept shoving food in his mouth he could pretend last night hadn't happened. Petunia busied herself with dishes that didn't need doing. Vernon hid behind his newspaper. It was, Harry thought, almost peaceful. He spent the rest of the day in his new room, resting on the bed while James walked him through what came next. The physical training is important, but it's not everything. The dragon soul is magic, Harry. Old magic, older than wands or spells or any of the things modern wizards play with. It's tied directly to your will, your intent, your emotions. If you can learn to control it, really control it, you'll be capable of things that would make the most powerful wizards alive look like children. Like what? Like fire. James sat in the desk chair again, semi-transparent in the daylight coming through the window. The dragon soul's primary manifestation is fire. Not normal fire, something hotter, more intense, something that can burn things that shouldn't be flammable. At full power, you could melt through solid stone in seconds. Reduce a human body to ash in the blink of an eye. That sounds dangerous. It's incredibly dangerous. Which is why we're not going to practice it until your physical control is perfect. The last thing we need is you accidentally incinerating something, or someone, because you sneezed wrong. Harry nodded slowly. That made sense. But there are other applications. The heat can be turned inward, used to accelerate your healing. You've already experienced that, last night, when your body repaired itself. With practice, you'll be able to heal from almost any injury in minutes rather than hours. It's not true immortality, but it's close enough to make killing you extremely difficult. What else? James hesitated. There are things I don't fully understand. Abilities that the old texts mention but never explain. Flight, supposedly. Creating objects out of solidified flame. Some references to seeing through lies, burning away illusions. It's possible those are just legends, exaggerations that built up over centuries. It's also possible they're real and no one's been able to access them since the dragon's soul last manifested. 300 years ago. Yes. Most of what I know comes from Potter family records, journals, letters, a few grimoires that have been passed down through generations. It's fragmentary. Incomplete. We'll be learning a lot of this together as we go. Harry stared at the water stains on his ceiling. They really did look like faces. Angry ones, with too many eyes. Why me? What do you mean? Why did the dragon's soul choose me? You said most Potters never even know it exists. What made me different? James was quiet for a long moment. I don't know, he finally admitted. It might have been the sacrifice, your mother's blood magic protecting you from the killing curse. It might have been Voldemort himself, some piece of his soul or power that got tangled up with yours when the curse rebounded. It might just be luck, random chance, the universe deciding it was time for the dragon's soul to wake up again. That's not very helpful. No. It's not. But I want to be honest with you, Harry. I'm not going to pretend I have all the answers, because I don't. We're both figuring this out as we go. The difference is, I've had 6 years of watching and thinking and reading to prepare. You're doing it all in real time. Harry closed his eyes. Will you stay? He asked. When it gets hard. When I make mistakes. When I want to give up. I'll be here until you don't need me anymore. And probably after that too, honestly. Death hasn't given me much else to do. It wasn't the warmest answer. Wasn't the fatherly comfort Harry had dreamed about in his cupboard on cold nights. But it was honest. It was real. And for now, that was enough. The next 4 years of Harry Potter's life were not easy. But then, easy had never been part of the plan. By the time he turned 8, Harry could punch through concrete without hurting his hand, and more importantly, he could touch a butterfly without crushing it. Control, James called it. The foundation of everything else. By 9, he'd mastered the basics of hand-to-hand combat, boxing stances, defensive footwork, how to throw a kick without falling over, how to take a hit without losing your balance. Not that anything short of a sledgehammer could make him lose his balance anymore, but James insisted on drilling the fundamentals. You won't always have your powers, his father explained during a midnight training session. There are spells that can suppress magic, places where it doesn't work at all. If you rely entirely on the dragon's soul and someone finds a way to neutralize it, you'll be helpless. But if you're a trained fighter even without powers, then you're still dangerous. Still capable. Still alive. Harry took the lesson to heart. By 10, he'd moved on to weapons training. Nothing fancy, James believed in practical tools, not showy ones. Knives, because they were easy to hide and devastating in close quarters. Sticks, because they were everywhere and a skilled fighter could turn a broom handle into a deadly weapon. Hand-to-hand combinations that flowed into arm techniques and back again. And through it all, the fire waited. Harry could feel it constantly now, that golden heat banked behind his ribs. He'd learned to reach it at will, to let little wisps of flame dance across his fingertips when no one else was watching. He'd learned to push the heat outward, to create localized burns on objects without actually setting them ablaze. He'd learned to turn it inward, to heal cuts and bruises in seconds rather than minutes. But he hadn't let it loose. Not fully. Not since that first night. You're not ready, James said whenever Harry asked. The fire isn't a tool yet. It's a force of nature that happens to live inside you. Until you understand it completely, until you can feel every flame as clearly as you feel your own fingers, using it at full power would be like juggling dynamite. Eventually something goes boom. So Harry waited. Practiced. Grew stronger. And watched. The Dursleys had been true to their word. Harry got his room, his food, his privacy. In return, he was a ghost in the house, present but unseen, noticed but never acknowledged. He walked past Dudley in the hallways and his cousin flinched away like Harry was carrying a disease. He sat at the dinner table and Vernon and Petunia studied their plates like the answers to life's great mysteries were hidden in their mashed potatoes. It was, Harry had to admit, almost peaceful. But he wasn't stupid enough to think it would last. The first sign of trouble came 3 weeks after his 10th birthday. Harry was walking home from the park, one of his regular routes, chosen because it was long enough to give him time alone and empty enough that no one would see him practicing, when he felt it. A prickle at the back of his neck. A shift in the air. The sensation of being watched by something that wasn't quite human. He kept walking. Didn't change his pace, didn't look around, didn't give any indication that he'd noticed anything wrong. But inside, the fire was stirring. James. His father materialized beside him, visible only to Harry, his expression already sharp with concern. I feel it too. Something's watching us. What is it? I don't know. I've never felt anything quite like. James stopped mid-sentence. His form flickered, destabilized, like a candle in a sudden wind. Harry. Listen to me very carefully. Whatever this is, it's not human. It's not wizard. It's something else. Something old. Old like the dragon soul. Maybe older. James's voice had gone flat. Tactical. There's a chance it's here for you specifically. The soul's been dormant for centuries, but its awakening would have sent ripples through certain magical communities. Things that remember what the dragon soul was. Things that might not want it to exist. Harry's hands curled into fists at his sides. So what do I do? For now. Nothing. Keep walking. Act normal. We don't know if this thing is hostile yet, and starting a fight we don't understand is a good way to die young. I thought I was supposed to be hard to kill. Hard doesn't mean impossible. And you're not at full strength yet. You're a 10-year-old with 4 years of training and a power source you've barely scratched the surface of. Whatever's watching us. I don't think it's 10 years old. Harry processed this. Kept walking. The prickle at his neck intensified. And then, as suddenly as it had appeared, it vanished. Harry walked another 3 blocks before letting himself relax. Even then, his senses stayed sharp, the fire burning just a little hotter behind his ribs. What the hell was that? He asked once they were safely back inside number 4. James was pacing, or floating, more accurately, his feet not quite touching the ground. I don't know. But I have suspicions. Care to share? The dragon's soul wasn't always dormant, Harry. Centuries ago, it was one of the most feared powers in the magical world. Wizards would wage wars over carriers, trying to either control them or kill them before they became too powerful to stop. And there were organizations. Groups dedicated to hunting down the dragon's soul and destroying it completely. I thought you said the last carrier was 300 years ago. He was. But that doesn't mean the hunters stopped existing. James stopped pacing. Turned to face Harry with an expression that was almost frightened. If they've found you, if they know you've awakened, then they'll come for me. Then they'll come for you. Harry thought about the feeling. That cold, ancient presence pressing against his awareness. The certainty that whatever had been watching him wasn't just curious. It had been evaluating. So we train harder, he said. Harry, we train harder, we learn faster, and when they come, he let the fire rise, just for a moment, just enough to light his eyes with golden flame. They find out I'm not the same as the carriers who came before me. James stared at him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, his father smiled. That's my son. The next year passed in a blur of preparation. James pushed Harry harder than ever before, longer training sessions, more complex techniques, deeper exploration of the dragon soul's capabilities. Harry learned to sense magical signatures, to feel the difference between normal humans and magical ones, to identify approaching threats before they got close enough to be dangerous. He learned to hide. Really hide, not just duck behind bushes or avoid eye contact, but to pull his magical presence inward so completely that he registered as blank space to anyone searching for him. It was exhausting, required constant concentration, but James drilled him until it became second nature. And he learned to fight. Not just with fists and feet, but with the fire itself. The first time Harry let it out intentionally, really let it out, not just the controlled wisps he'd been playing with, he understood why James had made him wait so long. The fire didn't just burn. It hungered. It wanted to consume everything it touched, to spread and grow and devour until there was nothing left but ash and embers. Harry felt its desire as clearly as he felt his own heartbeat, and it took everything he had to pull it back, to force the flames to obey his will rather than their own. He stood in the backyard of number 4 Privet Drive, 2 in the morning, staring at the scorched patch of earth where grass had been seconds before. The fence behind it had survived, but barely. The wood was blackened, smoking, one good gust of wind away from crumbling entirely. "Now you understand," James said quietly. "It's alive." Harry's voice came out hoarse. "The fire. It's alive. In a sense. The dragon soul isn't just power, it's a will. An intelligence, ancient and vast and fundamentally alien to human thinking. The carriers who lost control. They didn't just lose their grip on the fire. They lost themselves in it. Let its will override their own until there was nothing left of the person they'd been. Just the dragon, wearing human skin." Harry looked at his hands. He could still see the fire dancing beneath his skin, golden threads woven through flesh and bone. "I won't let that happen." "Then you need to master it completely. Not suppress it, not fight it, but integrate it. Make the fire's will an extension of your own rather than a separate thing you're constantly wrestling with." James moved closer, his ghostly form flickering in the residual heat of the blast. "It's the hardest thing any carrier has ever attempted. Most didn't even try, they either rode the power until it consumed them or locked it away and never touched it again. But if you can do it, if you can truly become one with the dragon's soul rather than just carrying it, you'll be something the world hasn't seen in millennia." "How do I start?" "By understanding that the fire isn't your enemy. It doesn't want to destroy you, Harry. It chose you. Saved your life. Whatever intelligence lives inside it, it decided you were worth preserving. That means something." "What does it mean?" "I don't know. But I think finding out is the key to everything." Harry stared at the scorched earth for a long time. Then he turned back toward the house, shoulders set, jaw firm. "Then I'll find out." His 11th birthday arrived on a Thursday. Harry woke early, before the sun came up, and spent an hour in the backyard practicing his forms. The movements were familiar now, ingrained through years of repetition, but he never let himself get complacent. Muscle memory was a tool, not a crutch. When he came back inside, there was an envelope on the kitchen table. It was heavy parchment, the kind that belonged in museums rather than suburban mail slots. Green ink spelled out his name in flowing calligraphy, Mr. H. Potter, the second bedroom, 4, Privet Drive, Little Whinging, Surrey. Harry picked it up. Felt the faint tingle of magic against his fingertips. "Your Hogwarts letter," James said, materializing beside him. "Right on schedule. I figured it would come eventually. How do you feel about it?" Harry turned the envelope over. A wax seal on the back bore a coat of arms he didn't recognize, a lion, an eagle, a badger, and a snake surrounding a large letter H. "I feel like the last 4 years have been preparation for this." He broke the seal, unfolded the letter. Scanned its contents. "They want me to respond by owl." "Do we have an owl?" "We're about to." Right on cue, there was a tapping at the kitchen window. Harry looked up to find a barn owl perched on the sill, head tilted, eyes fixed on the letter in his hands with what looked almost like impatience. He opened the window. The owl hopped inside, ruffled its feathers, and held out one leg expectantly. "I need to write a response first." The owl hooted in a way that somehow conveyed mild annoyance, then settled on the counter to wait. Harry found a pen and a scrap of paper. Wrote 3 words, "I'll be there." Signed his name. Folded the paper and attached it to the owl's leg. "Short and to the point," James observed. "They don't need more than that. They just need to know I'm coming." The owl departed through the still open window. Harry watched it go, watched until it was nothing but a speck against the morning sky. Then he turned to face whatever came next. What came next was a giant. Not literally, although at first glance, Harry thought he might be exactly that. The man who knocked on the door of number 4 Privet Drive 3 days later had to duck to fit through the doorway, and his shoulders were so broad they scraped both sides of the frame. Wild hair, wild beard, hands like dinner plates, and eyes that twinkled with a warmth that seemed almost impossible for someone so intimidating. "Harry Potter," the giant boomed, stepping inside without being invited. "Last time I saw you, you was only a baby. You look a lot like your dad, but you've got your mum's eyes." Harry didn't respond immediately. He was too busy scanning the man's magical signature, feeling out the edges of his power, assessing potential threat levels the way James had taught him. What he found was strange. Powerful but contained, like a lake that could flood at any moment but chose to stay calm. And underneath that, something else. Something not quite human. "You're Rubeus Hagrid," Harry said. "Keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts." Hagrid blinked. "Well, yeah. How'd you know that?" "The letter mentioned staff would come to assist students from non-magical families. I did some research." "Research?" Hagrid looked around the hallway, at the photos on the walls that didn't include Harry in any of them, at the locked door to the cupboard under the stairs, at the general atmosphere of barely concealed hostility that still lingered in the house. "What kind of research?" "The kind that's available if you know where to look." Harry grabbed his jacket from the hook by the door. He'd been prepared for this visit, bag already packed with essentials, ready to leave at a moment's notice. "Are we going to Diagon Alley now or later?" Hagrid's massive face split into a grin. "Eager one, aren't ya? Just like your dad." "All right then, let's get going. We've got a lot to do today." Harry walked out the front door without a backward glance. He didn't see the Dursleys watching from the upstairs window. Didn't see Petunia's expression, complicated and conflicted and something that might almost have been relief. Didn't see Vernon's face, still pale, still marked by sleepless nights and lingering fear. He was done with this house. Done with these people. Done with everything about the first 11 years of his life that didn't involve training and survival. Hogwarts was next. And whatever was coming, the hunters, the enemies, the challenges James had spent years preparing him for, Harry intended to be ready. The leaky cauldron was exactly as dingy as Harry expected a hidden wizard pub to be. He pushed through the door behind Hagrid, ignoring the curious stares from the patrons, the whispers that started almost immediately when someone recognized him. His name spread through the room like fire through dry grass. "Harry Potter, it's Harry Potter," and within seconds every eye in the place was fixed on him. Harry let them look. Kept his expression neutral, his body language relaxed, his magical signature pulled in so tight that even the most sensitive wizard in the room wouldn't sense anything unusual about him. "Let me introduce ya," Hagrid started, but Harry was already moving. "No need." He cut through the crowd toward the back, toward the door that he could feel led somewhere important. "We're here for supplies, not socializing. Can we get moving?" Hagrid spluttered behind him, but followed. The brick wall that guarded Diagon Alley was impressive, Harry had to admit. Solid stone that looked completely normal to mundane eyes, but hummed with protective enchantments when he extended his senses. Hagrid tapped a sequence on the bricks with his pink umbrella. Harry memorized the pattern instantly, and the wall folded away to reveal magic. Real magic, out in the open, casual and commonplace. Shops selling cauldrons, owl emporiums, apothecaries with window displays of things that squelched. Wizards and witches in flowing robes, goblins in bankers' suits, a few things Harry couldn't identify at all wandering between storefronts like they owned the place. The fire in his chest stirred. Recognized something here. Responded to it. "Welcome to Diagon Alley," Hagrid said proudly. Harry nodded. Took it all in. Started walking. The trip to Gringotts was educational. Harry learned that his parents had left him a small fortune. More money than the Dursleys would see in a lifetime, sitting in a vault deep beneath London, protected by goblins who looked at him with expressions that were impossible to read. He also learned that the goblins could sense the dragon's soul. The one who led him to his vault, Griphook, sharp teeth and sharper eyes, kept shooting glances at Harry's chest like he could see right through flesh and bone to the fire burning beneath. His expression never changed, professional neutrality maintained throughout, but Harry felt the awareness. The recognition. He didn't say anything. Neither did Griphook. But something passed between them in that silent exchange, some acknowledgement of a shared understanding. Harry wasn't just a wizard. The goblins knew it. And for whatever reason, they were choosing not to mention it. Interesting. The wand shop was where things got complicated. Ollivanders smelled like dust and old wood and something sharper underneath, something that prickled at Harry's senses the moment he walked through the door. The shop was empty except for an ancient man with silver eyes that seemed to see more than they should. Harry Potter. Ollivander's voice was soft, but it filled the space completely. "I've been expecting you." "Have you?" "Your mother's wand. Willow, 10¼ inches, swishy. Excellent for charm work." "Your father's." "Mahogany, 11 inches, pliable. A little more power, particularly in transfiguration." Ollivander drifted closer, those strange eyes never leaving Harry's face. "And you? I wonder what will choose you." Boxes started flying off shelves. Ollivander caught them, opened them, shoved wands into Harry's hand one after another. Nothing happened. No sparks, no warmth, no magical connection. 12 wands. 20. 30. Harry could feel Ollivander's excitement growing with each failure. The old man's eyes were practically glowing now, his movements quick and eager like a scientist on the verge of a breakthrough. "Tricky customer," Ollivander murmured. "Tricky, tricky. I wonder." He disappeared into the back of the shop. Returned with a single dusty box, older than any of the others, worn at the edges like it had been waiting for a very long time. Holly and phoenix feather. 11 inches. Nice and supple. Ollivander's voice had gone strange. Reverent. Curious. Most curious. Harry took the wand. And the fire in his chest screamed. Not pain, recognition. The dragon's soul surged up through his body like a wave, met the magic of the wand, and for one terrible second Harry thought he was going to lose control completely. Flames licked at his fingertips, golden light blazed in his eyes, and every scrap of concentration he had went into forcing the power back down. The wand helped. Actually helped, absorbing some of the overflow, channeling it into a shower of red and gold sparks that lit up the entire shop. When the light faded, Harry was standing there with the wand in his hand and his breathing only slightly ragged. Ollivander was staring at him. "The wand chooses the wizard," the old man whispered. "That much I have always known. But I have never seen a wand react to anything like that." "What are you, Mr. Potter?" Harry met his eyes. Let just a flicker of gold show in his own. "What I've always been. Just more of it." He paid for the wand and left before Ollivander could ask any more questions. That night, Harry sat on his bed in Dudley's old second bedroom, his bedroom now, and stared at the wand in his hands. It recognized the dragon soul, James said from his usual spot in the desk chair. The Phoenix Feather Core. Phoenixes are creatures of fire, Harry. They burn and rise and burn again. Whatever connection you felt, it wasn't coincidental. The wand that killed my parents, Harry said quietly. Ollivander mentioned it. Brother wands. The phoenix gave 2 feathers, one for this wand and one for him. Voldemort. Yes. Harry turned the wand over, watching the way the light played across the polished wood. Does that mean something? It means the universe has a dark sense of humor. James's voice was dry. Or it means fate is real and has decided you two are connected in ways that go beyond a failed killing curse. Take your pick. I don't believe in fate. Neither did I, before I died and became a ghost tethered to my infant son by blood magic I didn't ask for. James shrugged. Perspective changes things. Harry pocketed the wand. Lay back on his bed. Stared at the water-stained faces on the ceiling one last time. In a few days, he'd be on a train to Scotland. To Hogwarts. To a world he'd been preparing to enter for 4 years, full of magic and danger and enemies he hadn't even met yet. The hunters were still out there. Watching. Waiting. He'd felt their presence twice more since that first night, always distant, always retreating before he could get a fix on their location. They weren't ready to move against him yet. But they would be. Eventually. And when they came, Harry intended to be ready too. Get some sleep, James said. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. Every day from here on out is going to be a long day. Welcome to your new life, son. Harry closed his eyes. And dreamed of fire. Chapter 2, For years of fire. Harry's fist stopped exactly 1 centimeter from the brick wall. Not because he couldn't break it. He could shatter this entire section of the abandoned warehouse if he wanted to, bring the whole structure down around his ears without breaking a sweat. But that wasn't the point of the exercise. Again, James said from somewhere behind him. Harry pulled back. Reset his stance. Threw the punch again, stopping at exactly the same distance. 1 centimeter. Not 2, not half a centimeter. 1. Again. He'd been doing this for 3 hours. His arms should have been screaming by now, muscles burning, joints aching. Instead he felt nothing but the familiar warmth of the dragon's soul humming beneath his skin, feeding his body the energy it needed to keep going indefinitely. Again. The warehouse was their training ground, had been for almost 2 years now. Harry had found it during one of his long walks through Little Whinging's industrial district, abandoned, isolated, far enough from residential areas that no one would notice lights or sounds at odd hours. He'd claimed it without asking permission, broken the locks, swept out the worst of the debris. Now it was home to everything he couldn't practice in the Desley's backyard. Stop. Harry froze mid-motion. Held the position, fist extended, weight distributed perfectly across both feet. Your form's gotten sloppy in the last 30 minutes, James said, circling around to face him. Your elbows dropping half an inch on the extension. That's enough to throw off your accuracy at full speed. I've been punching a wall for 3 hours. Some sloppiness is expected. Expected isn't acceptable. The moment you start making excuses for imperfection is the moment you start dying. James's ghostly form flickered with something that might have been frustration. Do you think your enemies will care that you're tired? That you've been fighting for hours? They'll see that dropped elbow and put a knife through the gap it creates. Then you'll be dead, and I'll be stuck watching your corpse rot because I can't actually do anything useful. Harry straightened. Let his arms fall to his sides. You're in a mood today. I'm in a mood every day. You just don't usually notice because you're too busy training. James stopped pacing. Fixed Harry with those 2 deep eyes that always seemed to be looking at something far away. It's been almost 2 years since you awakened. 2 years of training, learning, growing. And you're still holding back. I'm not, you are. Every time we practice with the fire, you pull your punches. Keep it contained. Controlled. Safe. James spat the last word like a curse. Safe isn't going to cut it, Harry. Safe is going to get you killed. You told me control was the most important thing. Control is the foundation. But a foundation without a building on top of it is just a flat piece of ground. Useless. James moved closer, close enough that Harry could almost feel the chill of his presence. You've mastered the basics. Your physical abilities are years ahead of schedule. Your combat skills would give most adult wizards trouble. But the fire? The actual power of the dragon soul? You've barely scratched the surface. Harry said nothing. He knew James was right. Every time he reached for the fire, really reached for it, he felt that hunger. That alien will pressing against his own, wanting to consume and destroy and spread. It terrified him in a way that nothing else did. I know you're scared, James said, his voice softer now. I watched the first carrier lose himself to the flames. Watched him go from a good man to a monster over the course of 3 years. But you're not him, Harry. You're stronger than he ever was. Smarter. More stubborn. If anyone can master the dragon soul completely, it's you. And if I can't? Then we deal with that when it happens. But we won't know until you try. James stepped back. Gestured at the open space of the warehouse floor. Show me what you've got. All of it. Don't hold back. Harry looked at the empty concrete. At the distant walls, the high ceiling, the rusted beams that crisscrossed overhead. Plenty of space. Nothing flammable nearby. Nothing that would burn if he lost control. He reached for the fire. It came eagerly, rushing up from behind his ribs like it had been waiting for exactly this moment. Golden heat flooded through his veins, and Harry felt his skin begin to glow, felt his eyes blaze with light that cast dancing shadows across the warehouse floor. More. James wanted more. Harry pushed deeper. Let the fire rise higher. Flames licked along his arms now, real flames, golden and hungry and impossibly hot. The concrete beneath his feet began to crack, heat stress fracturing the surface in spiderweb patterns. More. The hunger pressed against his mind. Consume, it whispered. Spread. Burn. Let me show you what we can do together. Harry gritted his teeth. Kept pushing. Fire erupted from his hands, twin streams of golden flame that roared across the warehouse and slammed into the far wall. The impact was enormous. Concrete exploded outward, metal beams glowed orange and began to sag, and for one terrifying moment Harry felt the fire trying to spread, trying to catch on anything it could reach. He yanked it back. Pulled the flames into himself with a wrenching effort that left him gasping. The fire fought him, raged against the containment, but Harry's will was stronger. Barely. Just barely. When he opened his eyes, a quarter of the warehouse was gone. Melted slag and smoking rubble where solid walls had stood seconds before. Better, James said. Harry laughed. It came out ragged, half hysterical. Better? I just destroyed half our training ground. You also pulled it back before it spread further. Controlled the aftermath even at full power. James was smiling now, a rare expression that transformed his whole face. That's what I wanted to see. Not safe. Not contained. Real power, with real control. You can do both at once, Harry. You just proved it. Harry looked at his hands. The glow was fading, but he could still see golden threads pulsing beneath his skin, brighter than they'd ever been before. It wanted to keep going. The fire. It wanted to burn everything. It always will. That's its nature. But you're not the fire, you're the one who decides what the fire does. As long as you remember that, you'll never lose yourself the way the others did. Harry closed his fists. Felt the warmth settle back into its usual place behind his ribs, patient and waiting. We need a new training ground. We'll find one. But first, James gestured at the destroyed section of the warehouse. Fix that. What? The fire isn't just destruction, Harry. It's creation too. Raw energy, pure potential. If you can learn to shape it, you can rebuild what you've broken. James's expression turned thoughtful. Or so the old texts claim. No carrier has ever managed it that I know of. But you're full of surprises. Harry stared at the rubble. At the melted metal and shattered concrete. Fix it. Rebuild it. Using the same power that had just torn it apart. He reached for the fire again. This time, instead of letting it surge outward, he tried to shape it. To give it purpose beyond destruction. In his mind's eye, he pictured the warehouse as it had been, solid walls, intact beams, smooth concrete floor. He pushed that image into the flames, tried to make them understand what he wanted. Nothing happened. It's not going to work the first time, James said. Or the second. Or probably the 100th. But that's what training is for. Keep trying. Harry kept trying. 3 months later, he still couldn't rebuild anything. But he'd learned something else instead. The fire, it turned out, could do more than burn. When Harry pushed it outward in specific patterns, concentrated it in particular ways, he could create shapes. Not solid ones, not yet, but outlines, frameworks, ghost images made of golden flame that hung in the air for seconds before dissipating. It wasn't rebuilding. But it was something. Interesting, James said, studying the flame construct Harry had just created. A simple cube, edges sharp and precise, hovering a foot off the ground. The texts mentioned something like this. Solidified flame, they called it. The theory was that with enough control, a carrier could create actual objects from fire, weapons, tools, even buildings that wouldn't burn. How do I make it solid? The texts weren't clear on that. Supposedly it requires understanding the fire on a level that goes beyond conscious thought. Integration, not just control. James circled the fading cube. You're closer than any carrier I've studied. The fact that you can create stable shapes at all is remarkable. Harry let the construct dissipate. Slumped against the wall of their new training ground, another abandoned warehouse, this one even further from civilization than the last. It's been 2.5 years. I should be further along by now. Says who? There's no timeline for this, Harry. No benchmarks, no grades, no one telling you what you should be able to do at any given point. You're literally the first person in 3 centuries to attempt what you're attempting. Cut yourself some slack. Slack gets people killed. So does burning yourself out trying to achieve the impossible. James settled onto a rusted barrel, his weightless form not disturbing it in the slightest. You're 9 years old. You have more power, more skill, more potential than any child I've ever seen, and I watched some of the most talented young wizards of my generation train at Hogwarts. You're doing fine. Harry didn't feel fine. He felt frustrated, impatient, like every day spent not mastering the dragon's soul completely was a day wasted. The hunters were still out there. He felt them sometimes, those cold presences at the edge of his awareness. Watching. Waiting. Getting closer. Tell me about them, he said. The hunters. You've mentioned them before, but never in detail. James's expression darkened. The awakened ones. That's what they called themselves, back when they were active. A secret order dedicated to eliminating the dragon's soul from existence. Why? Because they feared what it could do. What its carriers could do. James stood, began pacing the warehouse floor. You have to understand, Harry, 300 years ago, the last carrier was a terror. He conquered half of Eastern Europe in a decade. Burned cities to the ground. Killed thousands. By the time the magical governments finally put him down, the dragon's soul had become synonymous with destruction. So they decided to wipe it out completely. They tried. Hunted down every Potter they could find, killed anyone who might carry the bloodline. They nearly succeeded. Your family was reduced to a handful of survivors who went into hiding, changed their names, pretended to be ordinary wizards. The dragon's soul went dormant, passed down through generations without ever manifesting, and eventually the awakened ones decided they'd won. But they didn't. No. Because here you are, 3 centuries later, with the soul burning brighter than it ever has. James stopped pacing. Fixed Harry with a serious look. They'll come for you eventually. When they're certain you're a genuine carrier, when they've gathered enough strength to actually pose a threat. And when they do, they won't stop until you're dead or they are. Harry absorbed this. Filed it away with all the other threats he'd been cataloging. How do I find them first? You don't. Not yet. They're ancient, Harry. They've been operating in secret for longer than most magical institutions have existed. They have resources, connections, influence in places you can't even imagine. Hunting them now would be suicide. Then what do I do? You keep training. Keep growing. Keep getting stronger. James's voice hardened. And when you go to Hogwarts, you keep your head down and your power hidden. Don't give them any more reasons to accelerate their timeline. Let them think you're just a normal wizard, just the boy who lived, nothing more. That sounds like hiding. It is hiding. Tactical hiding. The kind that keeps you alive long enough to actually fight back. James moved closer, his ghostly hand passing through Harry's shoulder in what might have been meant as a comforting gesture. I know you hate it. I know everything in you wants to strike first, to take the fight to them before they can bring it to you. But patience is a weapon too, Harry. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is wait. Harry thought about it. About the cold presences he felt watching him. About the years of training still ahead. About Hogwarts, and Voldemort, and all the other threats he'd have to face before he could even think about taking on an ancient order of dragon hunters. Fine, he said. I'll wait. But the moment they make a move, we burn them to ash. James smiled grimly. That's a promise. Harry's 10th birthday passed without ceremony. No cake, no presents, no party. The Dursleys had long since stopped pretending he existed, and Harry had no friends to celebrate with. He spent the day training, same as every other day, and when night fell he lay on his bed and stared at the ceiling and wondered if this was what the rest of his life would look like. You're brooding, James observed. I'm thinking. About what? Harry turned his head to look at his father's ghost. James was sitting in the desk chair as usual, semi-transparent in the dim light filtering through the window. About whether any of this is worth it. The training, the hiding, the constant preparation for threats that might not come for years. I'm 10 years old and I've never had a friend. Never been to a birthday party. Never done anything normal children do. You're not a normal child. I know that. But sometimes I wonder what it would be like if I was. Harry sat up, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. If I'd never awakened. If I'd just gone to Hogwarts like any other wizard, made friends, played Quidditch, worried about homework instead of ancient murder cults. You'd be dead. What? If you hadn't awakened, you would have died in that kitchen 3 years ago. Vernon's beating would have killed you. The dragon soul saved your life, Harry. Everything that's happened since then, the training, the isolation, all of it, that's the price of survival. Harry knew that. Had known it from the beginning. But hearing it stated so bluntly still stung. I'm not ungrateful. He struggled to find the words. I just wish things were different. Simpler. Wish I could be normal and powerful at the same time. Nobody gets that luxury. Power always comes with cost. The question is whether you're willing to pay it. James leaned forward, his expression uncharacteristically gentle. I can't make this easier for you, son. I can't give you the childhood you deserve. All I can do is prepare you for the world you're going to face. And I'm sorry, I'm so bloody sorry, that it's not enough. Harry looked at his father. At the ghost who had spent 3 years pushing him, driving him, demanding more and never letting him rest. He'd resented it sometimes. Hated it, even. But underneath all of that. You're the only family I have, Harry said quietly. The only person who's ever actually cared about me. Whatever we're doing, however hard it is, I'd rather have this than be alone. James didn't respond. Couldn't, maybe. Ghosts didn't cry, but something in his expression cracked anyway, some wall he'd been keeping up for years finally giving way. They sat in silence for a long time after that. The summer before Harry's 11th birthday brought changes. His body, already enhanced by the dragon soul, began shifting in ways that went beyond simple strength and speed. He grew 3 inches in 2 months, his frame filling out with lean muscle that moved like water under his skin. His senses sharpened further, he could hear conversations from rooms away now, could smell things that should have been beyond human detection. And the fire was getting stronger. You're approaching the next threshold, James explained during one of their late-night training sessions. The dragon soul doesn't awaken all at once. It happens in stages, triggered by growth and stress and time. You're about to hit the second stage. What does that mean? More power. More control. More hunger. James's expression was carefully neutral. The first stage saved your life and gave you the basics, enhanced physiology, access to the fire, connection to me. The second stage will unlock abilities you can't currently imagine. Such as? The texts aren't specific. Every carrier's second awakening was different. Some gained the ability to fly. Some could see through solid objects. One supposedly developed scales that could turn aside any blade. James shrugged. You'll find out when it happens. Harry processed this. And the hunger? You said more hunger. The fire will push harder. Demand more. The second stage is when most carriers started losing themselves, the power became intoxicating, addictive. They stopped fighting the hunger and started feeding it. I won't do that. I know you won't. But you need to be prepared for how strong the temptation will be. It's not just about willpower at that point, it's about having something to anchor yourself to. A purpose, a goal, something that matters more than the fire. Harry thought about that. What mattered to him? Survival, obviously. Getting stronger. But beyond that. I want to protect people, he said slowly. People who can't protect themselves. Like I couldn't, before I awakened. That's a good anchor. It's not enough, though. Is it? It might be. It might not be. You won't know until you're tested. James stood, his ghostly form flickering slightly. But for now, keep it close. Remember why you're doing this. The power isn't the point, the power is the tool. What matters is what you do with it. Harry nodded. Filed the lesson away with all the others. 3 weeks later, his Hogwarts letter arrived. The owl came at breakfast, which caused a minor disaster. Dudley screamed when the barn owl swooped through the open kitchen window. Petunia dropped a full pan of bacon onto the floor. Vernon started shouting about vermin and health codes and who the bloody hell let that thing into his house. Harry caught the letter before it hit the table. Read his name in green ink. Felt the familiar tingle of magic against his fingertips. It's mine, he said calmly. You can go back to whatever you were doing. The Dursleys froze. They always did when Harry spoke directly to them. 3 years of carefully maintained terror had trained them well. Vernon's face went through its usual color changes, red to purple to pale, but he didn't say anything. Just sat back down and stared at his plate. Harry opened the letter. Scanned the contents. Standard acceptance notification, list of required supplies, instructions for responding. It's time, James said from somewhere only Harry could see. You ready? Harry pocketed the letter. Stood up from the table. I'm going to need some money, he told the Dursleys. For school supplies. There's a fund my parents left, I'll access it myself, but I need transportation to London. Vernon's jaw worked. Transportation. A car. Yours, specifically. You'll drive me to the city, drop me at a location I specify, and pick me up 6 hours later. That's not a request. Now see here, Harry let a flicker of gold show in his eyes. Just a flicker, just for a second. Vernon shut up. Thank you for your cooperation. I'll need the car this Saturday. He walked out of the kitchen, up the stairs, into his room. Closed the door behind him and allowed himself a small smile. 3 years of dominance had its perks. Diagon Alley was everything James had described and more. Harry walked through the brick archway with his senses wide open, drinking in every detail. The shops, the crowds, the casual magic happening everywhere he looked. This was the world he'd been preparing to enter, the world where his power wasn't a secret shame but a potential weapon. He felt almost giddy. Focus, James warned. You're here for supplies, not sightseeing. Keep your signature pulled in and your head down. Right. Head down. Normal wizard. Nothing special to see here. Harry made his way through the crowds toward Gringotts, ignoring the whispers that followed him. His scar was visible, he'd learned long ago that trying to hide it just drew more attention, and plenty of people recognized it. Recognized him. The boy who lived, walking among them like a regular person. Let them stare. Let them whisper. None of them could see what he really was. The goblins at Gringotts were exactly as James had described, sharp, professional, and absolutely unintimidated by human wizards. Harry liked them immediately. They treated him like a client, not a celebrity, and when he requested access to his vault they processed the transaction without any of the fawning or special treatment he'd come to expect. Griphook led him down to the vaults. The cart ride was exhilarating. Harry had never moved that fast before, at least not under someone else's control, and when they finally stopped in front of Vault 687, he was actually smiling. Your key, Mr. Potter. Harry took the small golden key. Inserted it into the lock. Watched the massive door swing open to reveal. That's a lot of gold. The Potter family was not without resources, Griphook said neutrally. This vault contains your personal trust fund. The main family vault is separate and will become accessible when you reach your majority. Harry stepped inside. Ran his fingers through the piles of gold galleons, silver sickles, bronze nuts. More money than he'd ever seen, more than he'd ever imagined having. And this was just the trust fund. I'll need some converted to Muggle currency as well, he said. For expenses the magical world doesn't cover. That can be arranged. What amount? Harry calculated quickly. Living expenses, emergency funds, bribes if necessary. £500 to start. I'll convert more as needed. Griphook's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Approval, maybe. Or just surprise that a child was thinking about Muggle money at all. The transaction was completed efficiently. Harry filled a pouch with galleons, tucked the Muggle bills into a hidden pocket, and followed Griphook back to the surface. Thank you for your service, he told the goblin as they parted ways. I hope we can do business again. Griphook's lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. Gringotts is always open to valued customers, Mr. Potter. May your gold flow freely. And may your enemies tremble. Now Griphook did smile. A small, sharp expression that showed too many teeth. You know the old words. I did my research. Harry walked out of the bank feeling like he'd just passed some kind of test. Shopping for supplies was almost relaxing after the intensity of Gringotts. Harry moved through Diagon Alley with purpose, ticking items off his mental list. Robes from Madame Malkin's. Books from Flourish and Blotts. Cauldron, telescope, scales. The standard equipment of a first-year Hogwarts student, nothing special, nothing that would draw attention. The only hiccup came in the potion supply shop. Harry was examining a rack of standard ingredients when he felt it, another magical signature nearby, strong and controlled, belonging to someone who knew what they were doing. He turned his head slightly, scanning the shop, and found a boy his age, pale and pointed, with white blonde hair slicked back from his face. Expensive robes. Arrogant posture. And behind him, a house elf carrying an enormous pile of packages. Draco Malfoy. Harry had read about the family in some of James's old materials. Old blood, old money, old darkness. Lucius Malfoy had been a Death Eater, a follower of Voldemort, though he'd claimed the Imperius Curse and bought his way out of Azkaban. The boy was looking at Harry now. Sizing him up the way predators sized up potential rivals. New to Hogwarts. Draco's voice was cultured, confident. First year. That's right. Draco Malfoy. He extended a hand, clearly expecting Harry to be impressed. And you are? Harry considered his options. He could introduce himself properly, watch Draco's reaction to the famous name, deal with whatever sycophantic or hostile response followed. Or, Harry, he said simply. Shook the offered hand with carefully controlled strength. Just Harry. Draco's eyes narrowed slightly. Just Harry. No family name. None worth mentioning. I see. Draco's tone had shifted, gone colder. Clearly he'd expected more deference from someone without obvious status. Well, just Harry, I hope you're prepared for the realities of Hogwarts. Not everyone belongs there, you know. Some bloodlines are better than others. I've heard that opinion before. Usually from people trying to compensate for personal inadequacy. The silence that followed was spectacular. Draco's face went through several colors. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. The house elf behind him made a small squeaking sound of alarm. Do you know who I am? Draco finally managed. Draco Malfoy. You just told me. Harry smiled pleasantly. Was there something else? I have shopping to finish. He turned and walked away before Draco could formulate a response. Behind him, he heard sputtering, heard the house elf squeak again, heard footsteps storming in the opposite direction. That was unwise, James said once they were outside. The Malfoys have influence. You've made an enemy before you even got to school. He was going to be an enemy anyway. People like that always are. Harry shrugged. Better to establish the dynamic now than let him think he can push me around later. There's such a thing as subtlety, you know. There's also such a thing as setting boundaries. He needed to know I'm not someone he can intimidate. Harry paused outside Ollivander's. Besides, I'm curious how he'll react when he finds out who I actually am. Should be entertaining. James sighed. But he was smiling. Ollivander's was exactly as strange as James had warned him it would be. The shop was cramped, dusty, and absolutely packed with narrow boxes that seemed to go back forever. The air felt thick with magic, layers upon layers of it, different signatures from different wands all blending together into something that made Harry's senses hum. Mr. Potter. The voice came from nowhere and everywhere at once. Harry didn't flinch, he'd felt the old man's presence the moment he walked in, but he did turn to face the speaker. Ollivander emerged from the shadows between shelving units, silver eyes gleaming in the dim light. He moved like a spider, all careful precision and predatory patience. I've been expecting you. So I've heard. You remember every wand you've ever sold? Every single one, Mr. Potter. And I remember your parents. Your mother's, Willow, 10¼ inches, swishy. Excellent for charm work. Your father's, Mahogany, 11 inches, pliable. A little more power, particularly in transfiguration. He drifted closer. Those strange eyes never left Harry's face. I wonder what wand will choose you. The fitting process began. Wand after wand pressed into Harry's hand, each one producing nothing, no sparks, no warmth, no sense of connection. Ollivander grew more excited with each failure, his movements quicker, his eyes brighter. Tricky customer. Tricky, but we'll find your match, Mr. Potter. The wand chooses the wizard, after all. 20 wands. 30. 40. Harry felt the dragon soul stirring in his chest, responding to all this concentrated magical potential. He kept it contained, kept his signature pulled in tight, but the effort was getting harder with each passing minute. I wonder, Ollivander murmured, disappearing into the back of the shop. He returned with a box that looked older than the others, dustier, more worn at the edges. Try this one. Holly and Phoenix Feather. 11 inches. Nice and supple. Harry took the wand. The dragon's soul exploded. Not outward, he had enough control to prevent that, but upward, through his body, into the wand, meeting the phoenix feather core in a collision of power that lit up the entire shop. Golden fire danced along Harry's arms, blazed in his eyes, and for one terrifying moment he felt the wand trying to drink him in, trying to channel more power than any wand should be able to handle. He clamped down. Hard. Forced the fire back behind his ribs, forced the wand to accept a fraction of his power instead of all of it. The golden light faded to a shower of red and gold sparks, normal enough to pass for a standard wand-choosing reaction. When Harry opened his eyes, Ollivander was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. Curious, the old man whispered. Most curious. What's curious? I remember every wand I've ever sold, Mr. Potter. And I remember the brother of that wand. You, 13½ inches. I sold it to Tom Riddle, many years ago. He went on to become Lord Voldemort. Harry's grip tightened on the holly wand. You're saying my wand is connected to Voldemort's? The phoenix whose tail feather resides in your wand gave another feather, just one other. It is very curious that you should be destined for this wand when its brother gave you that scar. Destiny. Harry didn't believe in destiny. But he was starting to believe in patterns. What else did you see? He asked quietly. Just now, when the wand chose me. What did you see? Ollivander was silent for a long moment. I saw fire, he finally said. Fire unlike anything I've ever witnessed. And I've been making wands for a very, very long time, Mr. Potter. Harry met those silver eyes. Held them. I'd appreciate your discretion on that matter. Mr. Potter, I have kept the secrets of every wizard and witch who has ever walked through my door. Your fire is safe with me. Ollivander paused. Although I confess myself curious about its origin. Phoenix fire burns hot, but not like that. What are you, exactly? Just a wizard. No, Mr. Potter. You are very much not just a wizard. The old man smiled, a thin expression that didn't reach his eyes. But I suspect you already knew that. Harry paid for the wand in silence. Walked out of the shop with his new weapon tucked safely in his pocket. James was waiting for him outside. He knows something. He knows I have fire. He doesn't know what kind or where it comes from. Harry started walking toward the leaky cauldron. I'll have to keep an eye on him, but I don't think he's a threat. He's more interested in the mystery than in exploiting it. For now. For now, Harry agreed. But that's a problem for future me. Present me needs to get back to Surrey before Vernon has a stroke. The weeks between Diagon Alley and September 1st passed quickly. Harry trained harder than ever, pushing his physical abilities to new heights, practicing with the fire until he could produce flame constructs in complete darkness without conscious thought. His control was sharper now, more intuitive. The wand helped, something about the phoenix feather core resonated with the dragon soul, made the fire easier to direct. He also started practicing actual magic. The spells in his textbooks were laughably simple compared to what the dragon soul could do, but Harry learned them anyway. Lumos, Nox, basic levitation, simple transfiguration exercises. He needed to pass as a normal first year, which meant having the same skills as any other normal first year. "Your wand work is terrible," James observed one night. "I know. You're overcompensating. Trying to force the magic through the wand instead of letting it flow naturally. It's because you're used to the fire, which requires force and will. Wand magic is different, it's more about partnership than domination." Harry adjusted his grip. Tried the spell again. Better. But you're still too tense. Relax your wrist. He relaxed his wrist. The feather he'd been trying to levitate floated 3 inches off the table, wobbling slightly. "There you go. Now hold it." Harry held it. Felt the difference between this gentle guidance and the raw power of the dragon soul. 2 completely different systems, 2 completely different approaches to magic. You'll need to keep practicing. Your classmates will have been using wands their whole lives, they'll notice if your technique is off. I'll practice. Good. James paused. There's something else we should discuss. Hogwarts. What about it? The sorting. The hat will look into your mind, Harry. It will see everything, the dragon soul, the training, the fire. We need to decide how much to hide and whether hiding is even possible. Harry set down his wand. This was something he'd been thinking about for weeks. Can I block it? The hat? Possibly. Your mental defenses are strong. But the hat is an ancient artifact created by 4 of the most powerful wizards in history. It might be able to punch through anyway, and if it does, it'll know you were trying to hide something. So what do you suggest? Honesty. Selective honesty. James began pacing, the way he always did when working through a problem. Let the hat see the surface of things, your determination, your ambition, your desire to protect others. Keep the deeper secrets buried, but don't fight too hard. Make it think it's seeing everything when it's really just seeing what you want it to see. That's a fine line to walk. It is. But you're good at fine lines. James stopped pacing. There's one other thing. The hat will offer you a choice. 4 houses, 4 possibilities. You need to decide in advance which one you want. Harry had been thinking about this too. Slytherin. James's eyebrows rose. Really? I would have thought Gryffindor, given that you were a Gryffindor. That Voldemort was a Slytherin. That everyone expects the boy who lived to follow in his parents' noble footsteps. Harry shook his head. I'm not you, Dad. And I'm definitely not the boy who lived, not in the way they think. I'm something else entirely, and the house that fits me best is the one that values cunning, ambition, and resourcefulness. Slytherin will be hostile. Your classmates will be children of Death Eaters. They'll hate you on principle. Let them hate me. I'd rather have enemies in front of me than false friends at my back. Harry picked up his wand again, started practicing the levitation charm. Besides, being in Slytherin gives me cover. If I'm sorted there, people will assume I'm dark, dangerous, unpredictable. They'll watch me closely, which means they'll miss the things I'm actually trying to hide. That's, actually very clever. I learn from the best. James was quiet for a moment. Then he laughed, a real laugh, the kind Harry rarely heard from him. God, you're nothing like I expected. Is that good or bad? I haven't decided yet. But he was still smiling. All right. Slytherin it is. Just promise me you won't let those snakes corrupt you completely. Dad, I could burn their entire house to ash in about 30 seconds. If anything, they should be worried about me corrupting them. James's smile turned sharp. That's my boy. September 1st arrived cold and gray. Harry stood on platform 9 3/4 with his trunk beside him and his owl, purchased on a whim during a second trip to Diagon Alley, perched on his shoulder. The platform was crowded with families saying goodbye, students greeting friends, the general chaos of hundreds of young witches and wizards preparing for the journey to Hogwarts. He took it all in with his senses wide open. Magical signatures everywhere, different strengths and flavors, most of them unremarkable but a few standing out. Teachers, maybe. Or particularly powerful students. You feel that? James asked from beside him. The wards. They're analyzing everyone who passes through. Standard security magic. Looking for dark artifacts, dangerous creatures, that sort of thing. They won't detect the dragon soul, it's too far outside their parameters. Harry nodded. Hefted his trunk and started toward the train. The Hogwarts Express was magnificent, scarlet steam engine, old-fashioned carriages, the kind of thing that belonged in a history museum but somehow still functioned perfectly. Harry found an empty compartment near the back and settled in with his trunk stowed overhead. Time to see what Hogwarts had in store. The compartment door slid open 20 minutes into the journey. Mind if I sit here? Everywhere else is full. Harry looked up to find a girl with bushy brown hair and slightly too large front teeth standing in the doorway. She was already wearing her Hogwarts robes, a book clutched to her chest, and she had the nervous energy of someone who desperately wanted to make a good impression. Go ahead. She settled into the seat across from him, immediately opening her book and pretending to read. Harry could feel her curiosity from across the compartment. She kept sneaking glances at him, at his scar, at the way he sat with perfect stillness while the train rocked and swayed. I'm Hermione Granger, she finally said, giving up the pretense. I'm Muggle-born. First year. What about you? Harry. First year as well. Harry what? He considered lying. Decided it wasn't worth the effort. Potter. Her eyes went wide. Harry Potter. The Harry Potter. I've read about you in several books, Modern Magical History, The Rise and Fall of the Dark Arts, Great Wizarding Events of the 20th Century, I'm sure you have. Is it true? Did you really survive the killing curse? How did you do it? No one's ever survived it before. The books say, the books are probably wrong about most of it. Harry cut her off before she could work herself into a full-blown interrogation. I was 15 months old. I don't remember anything about that night except what other people have told me. Oh. Hermione deflated slightly. I suppose that makes sense. It must be strange, though. Being famous for something you don't even remember. It's something. She opened her mouth to ask more questions, but the compartment door slid open again. This time it was two boys, one tall and gangly with red hair and freckles, the other shorter and plump with a round face. They stopped dead when they saw Harry. Bloody hell, the redhead breathed. You're Harry Potter. So I've been told. I'm Ron. Ron Weasley. Can we? He gestured at the empty seats. Harry nodded. The two boys piled in, the round-faced one introducing himself as Neville Longbottom. Within minutes, Ron was chattering away about Quidditch and Hogwarts and his older brothers, while Neville listened quietly and Hermione interjected with facts from her extensive reading. Normal children. Living normal lives. Completely unaware that they were sitting across from something that could level a city block if it lost control. Harry let himself relax, just a little. This was what he'd trained for, blending in, acting normal, being just another first year on his way to magic school. If he could fool these three, he could fool anyone. What house do you think you'll be in? Ron asked. I'll probably be Gryffindor, all my family's been in Gryffindor. It'd be awful if I wasn't. I imagine I'll end up wherever I end up, Harry said neutrally. The hat decides, doesn't it? Yeah, but you must have some idea. Everyone says you're going to be in Gryffindor for sure. The boy who lived and all that. People say a lot of things. Ron looked confused by this response. Hermione, however, was studying Harry with an expression that suggested she was starting to realize there was more to him than met the eye. Good. She was clever. That could be useful. The train arrived at Hogsmeade Station as the sun was setting. Harry followed the crowd of first-years toward a familiar voice calling for them, Hagrid, enormous and beaming, carrying a lantern that cast dancing shadows across the platform. First years. First years over here. All right there, Harry. Fine, Hagrid. Thanks. The giant winked at him, then led the group down a narrow path toward the lake. Harry could feel Hogwarts before he saw it, an enormous concentration of magical energy pulsing ahead like a second sun. Old magic, layered and complex, the accumulated power of 1,000 years of witches and wizards passing through these grounds. Then the path opened up, and there it was. Hogwarts Castle rose from the shores of the lake like something out of a fever dream. Towers and turrets, windows glowing with warm light, the whole thing vast and ancient and absolutely impossible. Harry felt his breath catch despite himself. Beautiful, isn't it? James said quietly. I remember my first time seeing it. Felt like coming home. Harry didn't respond. He was too busy cataloging the wards, the magical signatures, the defensive enchantments he could feel layered throughout the structure. This wasn't just a school. It was a fortress, a repository of knowledge and power that had stood for longer than most modern nations. And he was about to walk through its doors. The great hall was overwhelming. Thousands of candles floated overhead, illuminating 4 long tables packed with students. The ceiling showed a cloudy night sky, enchanted, Harry knew from his reading, but no less impressive for the explanation. At the far end, a high table held the teachers, and in front of it sat a stool with a worn, patched hat. The Sorting Hat. Professor McGonagall led the first years to the front of the hall, then began calling names. Harry watched as student after student sat on the stool, had the hat placed on their head, and was sorted into one of 4 houses. The process seemed almost random, some decisions came instantly, others took minutes of deliberation. Granger, Hermione. Hermione practically ran to the stool. The hat took nearly 4 minutes before shouting, Gryffindor. She looked relieved as she hurried to join the cheering table. More names. Longbottom to Gryffindor, after an even longer deliberation. Malfoy to Slytherin, the hat barely touched his head before deciding. And then, Potter, Harry. The whispers started immediately. Harry ignored them, walking to the stool with measured steps, keeping his expression neutral and his magical signature pulled in tight. The hat dropped onto his head. Well, well, well. The voice was inside his mind, ancient and amused. What do we have here? The boy who lived, finally arrived. Let's see what's in that famous head of yours, the hat's presence pushed deeper. Harry let it see what he wanted it to see, determination, ambition, a fierce desire to prove himself. He kept the dragon soul buried, wrapped in layers of mundane thoughts and surface-level memories. Interesting. Very interesting. You're hiding something, Mr. Potter. Harry didn't respond. No matter. I can work with what you're showing me. Brave, certainly. Intelligent as well. Cunning too, more cunning than most who sit on this stool. But where to put you? Slytherin, Harry thought deliberately. I want Slytherin. Slytherin? Are you certain? The son of James and Lily Potter, in the House of Serpents. You'd face considerable opposition there. I can handle opposition. Perhaps you can. The hat's presence shifted, almost admiring. Very well, Mr. Potter. If you're certain, then let it be, Slytherin. The great hall went silent. Harry took off the hat, handed it back to McGonagall, who looked like she'd swallowed something sour, and walked toward the Slytherin table. Every eye in the room was on him. Every whisper had stopped. He sat down at the end of the bench, alone, and met the hostile stares of his new housemates with perfect calm. Let them stare. Let them wonder. Let them fear. He was exactly where he wanted to be. The Slytherin common room was deep beneath the lake. Harry followed the prefects through corridors of cold stone, down stairs that seemed to go forever, until finally they reached a blank wall that responded to a password. The room beyond was long and low, lit by greenish lamps, with windows that looked out into the dark water of the lake. Potter. He turned. A group of older students had gathered, their expressions ranging from curious to openly hostile. At their center stood Draco Malfoy, his face twisted with confusion. "You're the one from the potions shop." "Just Harry." Draco's voice dripped with disbelief. "You're Harry Potter. Full marks for observation. You lied to me. I gave you a partial truth. You made assumptions." Harry didn't move from his spot by the entrance. "If you're going to be angry about that, be angry at yourself for not asking better questions." Draco's face went red. Around him, his friends, if that was what they were, shifted uncomfortably. "My father told me about you," Draco said. "The boy who lived. The savior of the wizarding world. He said you'd be a Gryffindor for sure. Said we should be prepared to hate you on principle. And now I don't know what to think." Draco stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Harry could hear. "You're not what I expected, Potter. You're not what anyone expected. I imagine I'll hear that a lot." "That's not," Draco stopped. Took a breath. Started again. "I came over here to threaten you. To establish dominance. That's how things work in Slytherin. You're new, so you're at the bottom, and I was supposed to make sure you knew it. And instead I'm standing here realizing that threatening you would be a very, very bad idea." Draco's eyes were sharp, calculating. "You're not afraid of me at all, are you? Not even a little. Should I be? Most first years would be. I'm not most first years." They stood in silence for a moment, two boys measuring each other. Then, unexpectedly, Draco laughed. "No, you're really not." He extended his hand. "I think we got off on the wrong foot, Potter. Maybe we should start over." Harry looked at the offered hand. At Draco's face, still suspicious but now layered with something else, grudging respect, maybe. Interest. He could crush this boy. Could reduce him to ash with a thought, break his hand without even trying. But that wasn't the play. Not here, not now. He shook Draco's hand. Starting over sounds reasonable. Draco's grip was firm. His eyes were thoughtful. "Welcome to Slytherin, Potter. Things are going to be interesting." Harry smiled. "I'm counting on it." Chapter 3, The Sorting of Serpents. Severus Snape hated Harry Potter before he ever met him. Harry knew this because he could feel it, a cold, bitter malice radiating from the head table during the sorting feast, targeting him with laser precision. The potions master sat at Dumbledore's right hand, his black eyes fixed on Harry with an intensity that would have been unsettling if Harry hadn't spent years learning to read hostility. "That's Snape," Draco murmured from beside him. "Head of Slytherin House. He's also my godfather. He doesn't seem happy to see me. He and your father had history. Bad history." Draco pushed food around his plate, apparently unbothered by discussing family drama over dinner. "My father told me stories. James Potter made Snape's life miserable at Hogwarts. Bullied him relentlessly. Snape never forgot." Harry filed this information away. His father had mentioned some of his school days, the pranks, the rivalries, the group called the Marauders, but always with a certain evasiveness. Like there were parts of the story he wasn't proud of. Now he understood why. The grudge extends to me, apparently. Blood carries weight in our world, Potter. You'll learn that quickly enough. The feast continued. Harry ate sparingly, more interested in observing his new environment than filling his stomach. The Slytherin table was a study in controlled tension, alliances and rivalries playing out in glances and whispered conversations, everyone aware of everyone else's position in the hierarchy. And everyone was aware of him. "They're afraid of you," James said, materializing at Harry's shoulder. Only Harry could see him, of course, but his presence was still reassuring. "Look at how they're sitting. No one's turned their back to you. They're treating you like a threat. Because they can sense something's different," Harry thought. "Even if they don't know what. Smart kids. For snakes." At the head table, Dumbledore rose to make announcements. Harry studied the headmaster carefully, ancient, powerful, with eyes that seemed to see everything and nothing at once. This was the man who had left him with the Dursleys. The man who had decided that a cupboard under the stairs was an acceptable home for the boy who lived. Harry kept his expression neutral, but the fire in his chest flickered. "The third-floor corridor on the right-hand side is out of bounds to everyone who does not wish to die a very painful death." That got Harry's attention. Die a very painful death. In a school full of children. Interesting security measure, he murmured. "Dumbledore's always playing games," Draco replied, equally quiet. "My father says he has schemes within schemes. Nothing happens at this school that he doesn't know about. Then why announce a death trap instead of just warding it properly?" Draco paused. Frowned. "That's, actually a good question. Maybe he wants someone to investigate." Harry watched Dumbledore's face as the old wizard continued his announcements. "Or maybe he wants everyone to know there's something worth protecting on that corridor." "You think it's a trap?" "I think nothing in this castle is as simple as it seems." The feast ended. The prefects led the first years toward the dungeons, and Harry let himself be carried along with the crowd, already planning his next moves. The Slytherin dormitories were cold. Not unpleasantly so, the castle's magic kept the temperature bearable, but there was a chill in the stone that seeped into everything. Harry's bed was a four-poster with green hangings, positioned in a corner of the first-year boys' room with a clear view of the door. His roommates were Draco Malfoy, Blaise Zabini, Theodore Nott, Vincent Crabbe, and Gregory Goyle. Of these, only Draco and Blaise seemed worth paying attention to. Crabbe and Goyle were muscle, thick, slow, and utterly loyal to whoever fed them. Nott was quiet, watchful, the kind of person who gathered information and never shared it. Quite the collection, James observed as Harry unpacked his trunk. The Zabinis are neutral, old money, no allegiances. The Notts were Death Eaters, but quiet ones. Crabbe and Goyle, obviously, are just here to serve the Malfoys. And Draco himself? Complicated. His father's a monster, but Draco's still young. Still forming. Could go either way. Harry finished unpacking. Changed into nightclothes. Lay down on his bed with the hangings open, watching his roommates do the same. "Potter." He turned his head. Blaise Zabini was looking at him from two beds over, dark eyes curious. "You're not what I expected." "So I keep hearing. Most Gryffindor-type heroes would be terrified right now. First night in the snake pit, surrounded by enemies. But you look like you're settling in for a good night's sleep." "Who says you're my enemies?" Blaise smiled. It was a sharp expression, knowing. "Everyone in this room has family who supported the Dark Lord. Everyone in this room was raised to believe you represent everything wrong with the magical world. We're absolutely your enemies, Potter. The question is whether we'll stay that way. And what would change that? Proof that you're one of us. That the Sorting Hat wasn't broken when it put you here." Blaise rolled over, facing away. We'll see what you're made of soon enough. Good night, Potter. Harry stared at the canopy above his bed. One of us. As if belonging to Slytherin was about blood or politics or childhood allegiances. As if Harry had any intention of proving himself to a room full of children. But they'd given him information. Told him what they expected, what they valued, what they feared. And that was useful. He closed his eyes. Wake me if anything happens, he murmured to James. Always do. Harry slept. He dreamed of fire. Not the controlled flames he'd learned to summon, but something older. Wilder. A conflagration that stretched from horizon to horizon, consuming everything it touched. In the dream, Harry stood at the center of the inferno, untouched by the heat, watching the world burn around him. And something watched back. Eyes like suns. A presence so vast it made the dragon's soul feel like a candle flame by comparison. It looked at Harry across the burning landscape, and when it spoke, its voice was the roar of 1,000 furnaces. You are coming. Harry woke with his heart pounding and his sheets smoking. He sat up fast, slapping at the fabric to extinguish the smoldering patches before any of his roommates noticed. The dormitory was still dark, everyone else still asleep, and he forced himself to breathe slowly until his heartbeat returned to normal. What was that? James demanded, materializing beside the bed. A dream. Or, Harry looked at the scorch marks on his sheets. Maybe not just a dream. The dragon's soul was active while you slept. I could feel it from across the room. Something triggered it. There was a presence. Something huge. It said I was coming. James went very still. Describe it. Eyes like suns. Fire everywhere. It felt, Harry struggled for words. It felt like looking into a mirror. Like seeing a bigger version of what I carry inside me. The Dragon Council. The what? Ancient beings. The original sources of the dragon soul. James's voice had gone flat, tactical. Legend says they exist somewhere outside normal reality, a place where fire and consciousness merge into something post-physical. They created the bloodlines that carry the soul. They've been silent for millennia. Until now. Until you. James started pacing, his ghostly form flickering with agitation. This changes things. If the council is taking notice of you, if they're reaching out through dreams. I don't know what it means, but it's not going to be simple. Harry looked at his scarred sheets. At his hands, which still felt warm even though the fire had receded. Is this a threat? I don't know. The council isn't like the awakened ones, they don't hate the dragon soul, they created it. But their motives are completely alien. They might want to help you. They might want to test you. They might want to consume you and add your essence to their eternal fire. Wonderful options. Welcome to the deep end, son. James stopped pacing. For now, keep this to yourself. We don't know enough to act, and acting without information is how people die. But stay alert. If they reach out again, I'll pay attention. Harry lay back down. Closed his eyes. But he didn't sleep again that night. Morning came gray and cold. Harry was the first one awake in the dormitory, and he used the time to explore the common room before anyone else emerged. The space was larger than it had seemed the night before, multiple seating areas, study alcoves, a massive fireplace that somehow burned green. The windows looking into the lake were the most interesting feature. Harry stood before one, watching shapes move in the dark water. Fish, probably, or magical creatures he didn't recognize. You're up early. He turned. A girl stood at the entrance to the girls' dormitories, blonde and pale and watching him with eyes like ice chips. She moved into the common room with perfect poise, every step deliberate. I'm always up early, Harry said. So am I. She settled into a chair near the fireplace, not taking her eyes off him. Daphne Greengrass. First year, obviously. Harry Potter. Also obviously. The sorting was quite the spectacle. Her tone was neutral, giving nothing away. I don't think I've ever seen the Great Hall go that silent. People had expectations. People always do. Daphne tilted her head, studying him. You're not what I expected either, for the record. I was prepared for a pampered hero, riding his fame into whatever house would have him. Instead I got, she paused. What exactly did I get? A first-year wizard, same as you. No. Not the same as me. Her eyes were sharp, analytical. You carry yourself differently. Watch the room like you're expecting an attack. Sit with your back to the wall. I noticed it at the feast, you never turned away from the doors, not once. Harry reassessed. This wasn't an idle conversation. This was reconnaissance. You're observant. I'm a Greengrass. We're observers by nature. My family doesn't take sides in conflicts, we watch, we wait, we gather information until we know exactly which way the wind is blowing. She leaned forward slightly. The wind around you is very interesting, Harry Potter. Interesting how? Interesting like a storm that hasn't broken yet. You're hiding something. Something significant. And I intend to find out what it is. Harry considered his options. This girl was clearly intelligent, potentially dangerous in the political sense if not the physical. He could shut down the conversation, establish distance, keep her at arm's length like everyone else. Or he could take a risk. Ask me to Hogsmeade sometime, he said. When we're allowed to go. I'll tell you a story. Daphne's eyebrows rose. Are you flirting with me? I'm making an offer. You want information about me? Earn it. Show me you're worth trusting. Harry smiled slightly. I don't give secrets to strangers. But I might give them to friends. We're not friends. Not yet. They stared at each other across the common room. The fire crackled. Shapes moved in the lake water. I'll think about it, Daphne finally said. Take your time. She rose from her chair. Walked back toward the girls' dormitories. At the entrance, she paused. You're dangerous, Harry Potter. I can smell it on you. Is that a problem? Not necessarily. Dangerous can be useful. She disappeared through the doorway. I'll be in touch. Harry watched her go. She's going to be trouble, James said from somewhere behind him. The best ones always are. Breakfast in the Great Hall was an exercise in controlled chaos. Harry sat at the Slytherin table, surrounded by hostile glances and whispered conversations, eating his food with perfect calm while the rest of the school tried to figure out what to make of him. The Gryffindors were particularly agitated. He could feel their confusion from across the room, their sense that something had gone terribly wrong. Ron Weasley caught his eye at one point and quickly looked away. You've broken their worldview, James observed. The boy who lived isn't supposed to be a snake. It's like finding out Father Christmas is a dark wizard. Harry suppressed a smile. The mail arrived in a flutter of wings. Owls descended from the enchanted ceiling, dropping letters and packages onto tables throughout the hall. Harry watched without expectation. He hadn't written to anyone, and no one should be writing to him. So he was surprised when a large eagle owl landed directly in front of him. The letter it carried was on expensive parchment, sealed with a coat of arms Harry didn't recognize. He took it carefully, checked it for obvious traps, a habit James had drilled into him, and broke the seal. Mr. Potter, I confess myself surprised by your sorting. I had expected Gryffindor, as did everyone who knows your history. The fact that you chose otherwise, and I have no doubt it was a choice, suggests a depth of character that few children your age possess. I would very much like to meet you. Not as headmaster and student, but as two people with much to discuss. My office is located behind the gargoyle on the 7th floor. The password, this week, is lemon drop. Come when you're ready. I suspect that will be sooner rather than later. Albus Dumbledore. Harry read the letter twice. Folded it carefully. Tucked it into his robes. Dumbledore already? James sounded worried. That's faster than I expected. He knows something's different about me. Or he suspects. Either way, you'll have to meet with him eventually. The man has eyes everywhere. Better to control the meeting than let him choose the terms. My thinking exactly. But be careful. Dumbledore is powerful, manipulative, and absolutely convinced he knows what's best for everyone. He'll try to steer you toward his plans, whatever they are. Harry looked up at the head table. Dumbledore was watching him, those bright blue eyes twinkling with something that might have been amusement. Harry raised his glass in a slight salute. Dumbledore smiled. Classes started that afternoon. History of magic was soporific. The ghost professor droned on about goblin rebellions while half the class fell asleep. Charms was better, a tiny professor named Flitwick who seemed genuinely enthusiastic about his subject. Harry performed the basic exercises with deliberate mediocrity, hitting exactly the targets a first year should hit and no more. It was potions that complicated things. The dungeon classroom was cold and dark, lined with jars of preserved specimens that stared at Harry as he entered. Professor Snape stood at the front, black robes billowing despite the lack of wind, his expression already set in lines of contempt. Potter, Snape said as Harry took his seat. Our new celebrity. The Slytherins around him shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't how their head of house usually addressed them. Professor. Tell me, Potter, what would I get if I added powdered root of asphodel to an infusion of wormwood? Harry knew the answer. He'd read all his textbooks cover to cover, memorized every potion and procedure. But this wasn't really about potions, it was about establishing dominance. About showing the class that Harry Potter was nothing special. The draft of living death, sir. Snape's eyes narrowed. Where would you look if I told you to find me a bezoar? The stomach of a goat, sir. They're used as antidotes to most poisons. What is the difference between monkshood and wolfsbane? They're the same plant, sir. Also called aconite. The classroom had gone very quiet. Snape was staring at Harry with an expression of mixed surprise and suspicion. He'd clearly expected ignorance, not competence. It seems celebrity comes with some actual knowledge, Snape said slowly. How refreshing. 10 points to Slytherin. Harry inclined his head slightly. Thank you, sir. The lesson proceeded without further confrontation, but Harry could feel Snape's attention on him throughout. The potions master had expected to humiliate James Potter's son, and instead he'd found something unexpected. Good. Let him wonder. Let them all wonder. That evening, Harry visited Dumbledore. The gargoyle recognized the password and leaped aside, revealing a spiral staircase that carried him upward to a circular office. The room was cluttered with strange instruments, shelves of books, and a magnificent phoenix perched on a golden stand. The phoenix looked at Harry when he entered. Its eyes were like fire, and Harry felt the dragon's soul stir in response, a recognition of kindred flames. Ah, Harry. Please, come in. Dumbledore sat behind a massive desk, looking every inch the wise old wizard. He gestured at a comfortable chair across from him. Lemon drop? No thank you, sir. Suit yourself. Dumbledore took one for himself, sucking on it thoughtfully. I must say, your sorting was quite the surprise. I had prepared a speech for your arrival in Gryffindor. Had to completely throw it out. Sorry to inconvenience you. Not at all, not at all. Surprises are good for old men like me. Keep us young. Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. Tell me, Harry, why Slytherin? The hat asked me the same thing. And what did you tell it? That I belong where I can be most effective. Harry met Dumbledore's gaze directly. Gryffindor would have been comfortable. Expected. But I've learned that comfort is dangerous. It makes you soft. A remarkably mature perspective for an 11-year-old. I've had a remarkable education. Dumbledore's expression shifted slightly. The twinkle dimmed. Yes. I imagine you have. He was quiet for a moment. I've done you a great disservice, Harry. Leaving you with the Dursleys. I thought, but no. Excuses don't help anyone. The point is, I knew their treatment of you was suboptimal. I knew, and I did nothing. Why? Because I believed the blood wards protecting you outweighed the cost of your suffering. I was wrong. Dumbledore looked genuinely pained. I'm sorry, Harry. Truly. Harry considered this. The apology seemed sincere, but sincerity didn't undo 11 years of abuse. Didn't change the fact that this man had known and done nothing. I appreciate the apology, Harry said carefully. But I'm not sure I'm ready to accept it yet. Nor should you be. Forgiveness takes time, and you owe me nothing. Dumbledore folded his hands on the desk. But I did want you to know that I regret my choices. And that I hope, in time, to earn your trust. That will depend on your actions going forward. As it should. Dumbledore smiled, the twinkle returning. You really are remarkable, Harry. Not at all what I expected. I keep hearing that. I imagine you do. Dumbledore stood, moving toward the window. There's something else I wanted to discuss. The third-floor corridor. Harry's attention sharpened. The death trap. I see you were listening to my announcement. Dumbledore gazed out at the darkening grounds. Yes. There's something valuable hidden there. Something that needs protection. And I find myself wondering if I can trust you to stay away from it. Why would I go looking for trouble? Because trouble has a way of finding Potters. Dumbledore turned to face him. Your father and his friends were great ones for exploring forbidden areas. Breaking rules. Sticking their noses where they didn't belong. I'm not my father. No. You're not. But I wanted to be clear, whatever you might hear about the corridor, whatever curiosity you might feel, please stay away. The danger there is very real. Harry stood. Is there anything else, Professor? Just one thing. Dumbledore's eyes met his, and for a moment Harry saw something ancient behind that kindly facade. Something powerful and calculating and utterly relentless. If you ever need help, any kind of help, at any time, my door is always open. Remember that. I will, sir. Harry left the office, his mind racing. Dumbledore knew something was different about him. Maybe not the specifics, the dragon soul, the training, James's ghost, but enough to be curious. Enough to want to keep Harry close, to build trust, to position himself as an ally. The question was whether that was good or bad. He's playing a long game, James said as Harry descended the spiral stairs. Dumbledore always plays long games. The question is whether his goals align with yours. And if they don't, then we deal with that when it happens. For now, keep him at arm's length. Give him nothing he can use. And stay the hell away from the third floor. Harry smiled grimly. Somehow, he doubted that last part would be possible. The next week settled into a rhythm. Classes during the day, training at night. Harry found empty rooms in the castle's endless corridors, places where he could practice his forms and work with the fire without being discovered. Hogwarts was vast enough that no one noticed his absences, and the dragon soul seemed to respond to the ambient magic, growing stronger in ways Harry couldn't quite define. He also built alliances. Draco remained his primary contact in Slytherin, their tentative truce evolving into something resembling actual friendship. They studied together, ate meals together, presented a united front to the rest of the house. It was political, mostly, two powerful families aligning for mutual benefit, but there was genuine warmth beneath the calculation. Daphne Greengrass kept her distance, but Harry caught her watching him sometimes. She'd accepted his offer eventually, he knew. It was just a matter of time. The other houses were more complicated. Hermione Granger sought him out in the library one evening, approaching his table with a stack of books and an expression of determined curiosity. "I've been reading about you," she said without preamble. "Everything I can find about that night. About what happened to your parents. And none of it makes sense." She sat down across from him, uninvited. "The killing curse is supposed to be unblockable. No shield stops it, no magic deflects it. But somehow you survived. And in the process, you destroyed the most powerful dark wizard in a century. Allegedly." "What do you mean, allegedly?" Harry closed the book he'd been reading. "Voldemort was powerful, I won't argue that. But there's no proof he's actually dead. His body was never found. No one knows exactly what happened in that room except that my parents died and I survived with this." He touched his scar. "The wizarding world decided to call it a victory because they wanted it to be won. That doesn't make it true." Hermione stared at him. "You think he might still be alive?" "I think no one knows for certain, and assuming otherwise is dangerous." She absorbed this, her quick mind clearly working through the implications. "You're not what I expected," she finally said. "I'm getting tired of hearing that." "I'm sure." She smiled slightly. "Can I ask you something personal?" "You can ask." "Why Slytherin? You don't seem like," she waved her hand vaguely, "like the others. You're not obsessed with blood purity, you don't strut around acting superior. Why would you choose to be surrounded by people who would probably hate you if they knew the real you?" Harry considered his answer carefully. "Because I'd rather have enemies I can see than friends who might betray me later. In Slytherin, I know where I stand. Everyone's motivations are clear. No one pretends to like me because I'm famous. If they like me at all, it's because I've proven myself useful." "That's incredibly cynical." "That's incredibly realistic." Harry leaned forward. "The wizarding world isn't what you think it is, Hermione. It's not a fairy tale where good always wins and the right people always come out on top. It's politics, power, manipulation. The sooner you learn that, the better off you'll be. And you learned that, where? You grew up with muggles." "I had a good teacher." Hermione was quiet for a long moment. "I think I'd like to be your friend," she said. "Even if you are a snake." Harry smiled. It was a genuine expression, which surprised him. "I think I'd like that too." The Troll came on Halloween. Harry was in the Great Hall for the feast, sitting with Draco and Blaise, when Professor Quirrell burst through the doors screaming about a troll in the dungeons. The chaos that followed was predictable, students panicking, teachers shouting orders, prefects trying to maintain control. In the confusion, Harry noticed two things. First, Hermione Granger wasn't at her table. She'd been missing since afternoon, someone said, upset about something, crying in the bathroom. Second, the troll wasn't in the dungeons anymore. Harry could feel it moving through the castle, its magical signature crude but unmistakable, heading toward the bathrooms. He was moving before he consciously decided to act. Through the crowd, out the doors, down corridors he'd memorized in his nighttime explorations. James was at his shoulder, his ghostly form flickering with urgency. "This is stupid," his father said. "You're exposing yourself for a girl you barely know. She's in danger. So are a lot of people. That's what teachers are for." Harry didn't slow down. He found the bathroom by following the smell, rank, animal, wrong in ways he couldn't quite describe. The troll was inside, he could hear it smashing things, and underneath the crashes he heard something else. Screaming. Harry kicked open the door. The bathroom was destroyed. Stalls smashed, sinks torn from walls, water flooding across the floor. And in the corner, pressed against the wall, Hermione Granger stared up at 12 feet of mountain troll with terror in her eyes. The troll raised its club. Harry moved. He crossed the distance in less than a second, faster than he'd ever moved before, and caught the descending club in both hands. The impact shuddered through his arms, his shoulders, his entire body. The troll was strong, strong enough to give even the dragon soul pause. But Harry was stronger. He ripped the club from the troll's grip. Spun it around. Brought it crashing into the creature's skull with every ounce of enhanced strength he possessed. The troll dropped like a puppet with its strings cut. Silence. Dripping water. Hermione's ragged breathing. Harry, she stared at him, at the unconscious troll, at the massive club still in his hands. How did you, that's not, are you hurt? What? Are you hurt? Harry dropped the club. Moved toward her carefully, not wanting to frighten her more. Did it touch you? No. No, I'm fine. But you just, she seemed unable to complete the sentence. Harry helped her to her feet just as the teachers arrived. McGonagall was first through the door, her face white with shock. Snape was right behind her, black eyes taking in the scene with calculating intensity. And behind them both, moving slowly, watching Harry with an expression of deep interest, Professor Quirrell. Harry met the defense teacher's gaze. Felt something stir behind those nervous eyes, something cold and wrong and utterly familiar. The fire in his chest flared. The thing inside Quirrell noticed. Its attention sharpened, focused on Harry with sudden intensity. Then McGonagall was demanding explanations, Snape was snarling about foolish heroics, and the moment passed. But Harry had felt it. Had felt what was hiding inside that pathetic, stuttering professor. Voldemort. Later that night, Harry sat alone in an empty classroom on the 4th floor, staring out the window at the darkened grounds. You're sure? James asked. Positive. I felt it. The same thing that gave me this scar. Harry touched the lightning bolt on his forehead. It's here. Inside Quirrell. That's not good. That's an understatement. James paced the length of the room. The 3rd floor corridor. Dumbledore said there was something valuable there, something that needed protection. What if Voldemort is after it? What if that's why he's possessing a teacher? Then I need to know what's being protected. Harry, I'm not going to wait for him to make the first move. Harry stood, his decision made. Whatever's on that corridor, I'm going to find out. And then I'm going to decide whether to protect it or destroy it. That's incredibly dangerous. So is ignoring a threat until it becomes a crisis. Harry looked at his father. You taught me that. You said the best time to stop an enemy is before they become one. Well, Voldemort is already my enemy. The question is whether I deal with him now or wait until he's strong enough to be a real problem. James was quiet for a long moment. You've grown, he finally said. When I first started training you, I wasn't sure you'd survive a year. Now. He shook his head. You're not the scared little boy from that cupboard anymore. I never want to be that boy again. You won't be. James moved closer, his ghostly hand passing through Harry's shoulder. Whatever happens next, I'm proud of you. I hope you know that. Harry felt something warm spread through his chest, not the fire, but something gentler. Something he'd been missing for a long time. Thanks, Dad. Don't thank me yet. We still have a Dark Lord to deal with. James's expression turned serious. Tomorrow night. We'll investigate the 3rd floor. But we do it carefully, no unnecessary risks, no showing off. We get in, we find out what's there, and we get out. Agreed. Harry turned back to the window. Somewhere in this castle, the thing that had killed his parents was hiding inside a professor's body. Planning something. Working toward goals Harry could only guess at. But Harry had goals too. And a power that Voldemort had never encountered. The dragon soul stirred in his chest, eager for the confrontation to come. Soon, Harry thought. Soon. The next night, Harry made his move. Getting to the third floor was easy, the castle was vast and poorly supervised after curfew. Harry moved through the corridors like a shadow, his senses extended, tracking the positions of prefects and teachers with instinctive ease. The door to the forbidden corridor was locked, but a simple Alohomora fixed that. Harry slipped inside, closing the door softly behind him. And came face to face with a three-headed dog. The creature was massive, filling most of the corridor, its three heads all focused on Harry with murderous intent. It growled, a sound like rocks grinding together, and tensed to spring. Harry reached for the fire. "Wait," James said urgently. "Look at its feet." Harry looked. The dog was standing on a trapdoor. "It's guarding something underneath. You don't need to fight it, you need to get past it." The dog lunged. Harry dove to the side, rolling under a swipe of massive paws, and came up running. The creature's head snapped at him from all directions, but he was too fast, too agile, the dragon soul sang in his veins as he pushed his body to its limits. He reached the trapdoor. Yanked it open. Dropped through into darkness. The fall was longer than expected, but he landed on something soft. Vines, his mind registered. Some kind of plant that, the vines started moving. They wrapped around his arms, his legs, his chest, pulling tight with crushing force. Devil's snare, he remembered from herbology. Dangerous plant, hates fire, fire. Harry let the dragon soul loose. Golden flames erupted from his body, incinerating the vines in an instant. He dropped through the ashes to solid ground, the fire receding as quickly as it had appeared. "That was close," James said. "It was controlled." "Barely." Harry moved forward. A corridor led to a chamber filled with flying keys, another door required him to play chess on a massive board. Each obstacle was designed to slow intruders, but none were truly deadly, almost as if someone had intended for them to be passable. "This is too easy," Harry murmured. "It's designed for students. Dumbledore's testing something, or someone." The next room held a troll, already unconscious, someone had come this way before him. Harry stepped over the creature and continued. Logic puzzle. Potions. Harry solved it in seconds and drank the correct vial, passing through the black flames to the final chamber. And there, standing before an ornate mirror, was Professor Quirrell. "I wondered when you'd arrive, Mr. Potter." Quirrell turned. His face was calm now, none of the nervous stuttering Harry had seen in class. His eyes were hard and cold and completely inhuman. The troll in the bathroom was a useful distraction. "But I knew you'd come here eventually." The boy who lived, drawn to danger like a moth to flame. Quirrell smiled. "How appropriate. What's in the mirror?" "Straight to business." "I appreciate that." Quirrell stepped aside, revealing the ornate frame and reflective surface behind him. The mirror of Erist. It shows the deepest desire of whoever looks into it. And somewhere, somehow, it's hiding the Philosopher's Stone. The what? A legendary artifact created by Nicholas Flamel. It produces the elixir of life, which grants immortality to whoever drinks it. Quirrell's eyes glittered. "My master wants it very much." "Your master?" Harry let the fire rise, just a little. "Voldemort. So you know." Quirrell seemed unsurprised. "I felt you sense him at the feast. Through the connection in your scar, perhaps. A fascinating piece of magic, that. He's been curious about it." "Where is he?" "He's always with me. Always watching. Always, waiting." Quirrell reached up and began unwrapping his turban. "He'd like to speak with you directly." The turban fell away. The face on the back of Quirrell's head was something out of Nightmare. Pale, snake-like, with red eyes that burned with malevolent intelligence. It fixed those eyes on Harry, and when it spoke, its voice was like ice sliding over broken glass. Harry Potter. We meet again. The dragon soul roared in Harry's chest. Every instinct screamed at him to attack, to burn, to destroy this abomination before it could destroy him. But Harry held back, forcing himself to think. Voldemort. The same. The face smiled, a horrific expression. I must say, you've exceeded my expectations. Slytherin House, a surprisingly mature demeanor, and now you've solved Dumbledore's puzzles in record time. I'm almost impressed. What do you want? Many things. The stone, obviously. But I'm also curious about you. Those red eyes seem to look right through him. You carry something inside you, Potter. Something I've never encountered before. I felt it when my curse rebounded, a power that shouldn't exist. You don't know what I am. Not yet. But I intend to find out. Voldemort's voice hardened. Join me, Potter. Bring me the stone from the mirror, and I'll teach you secrets that would make Dumbledore weep with envy. Together, we could reshape this world into something better. Something stronger. Harry looked at the mirror. At Quirrell's desperate eyes. At the monster attached to the back of his head. No. The word came out calm. Certain. Voldemort's expression flickered. No. Just like that. You haven't even considered, you killed my parents. You tried to kill me. And now you expect me to join you because you offer power. Harry let the fire rise, let it glow in his eyes, let his skin begin to shimmer with golden light. I have power. More than you can imagine. And I don't need you to teach me anything. The chamber filled with heat. Voldemort's eyes widened. What is this? What are you? I'm Harry Potter. The fire surged through Harry's veins, hotter than it had ever been, responding to his rage and his conviction and his absolute refusal to bow. And I'm going to end you. He attacked. The battle was brief but devastating. Quirrell's body couldn't handle direct contact with Harry. Wherever Harry's hands touched him, the man's skin blistered and burned. The dragon soul seemed to react specifically to Voldemort's presence, generating heat that nothing dark could survive. Quirrell screamed. Voldemort screamed. The chamber shook with released magic as Harry pressed his palms against the possessed professor's face and let the fire do its work. When it was over, Quirrell was dead. And from his corpse rose a wraith, a twisted shadow of what had once been Tom Riddle, barely held together by will and dark magic. It howled in fury and pain, circled Harry once as if considering attack, and then fled through the chamber wall. Harry stood alone among the ashes, breathing hard, the fire slowly receding from his skin. It's not over, James said quietly. I know. Harry looked at the mirror, at the stone he could now see glinting in his reflection's pocket, the desire of his heart, to protect others by destroying threats before they grew. But it's a start. He reached into his pocket and found the stone there, heavy and warm against his palm. Dumbledore would want to know about this. The whole castle would be in an uproar by morning. But for now, Harry stood in the ruined chamber and allowed himself a moment of grim satisfaction. His first real victory. The first of many. The hospital wing was quiet when Harry woke. He'd passed out somewhere between the chamber and the entrance to the corridor, blood loss, Madame Pomfrey said, combined with magical exhaustion. They'd found him sprawled on the floor with the stone clutched in his hand and Quirrell's corpse turning to dust behind him. Dumbledore was sitting beside his bed when Harry opened his eyes. You disobeyed my instructions, the headmaster said. His voice was mild, but there was steel underneath. Voldemort was in the castle. Inside a teacher. Was I supposed to ignore that? You were supposed to tell an adult. Adults knew. You knew. And nothing was done. Harry sat up slowly, wincing at the pull of bandaged wounds. I did what needed to be done. Dumbledore studied him for a long moment. The stone has been destroyed, he finally said. Nicholas and I discussed it after your adventure. We decided it was too dangerous to keep. And Voldemort? Fled. He's not strong enough to maintain physical form without a host. He'll find another way to return, eventually. But you've bought us time. Dumbledore's expression softened. I'm proud of you, Harry. And terrified for you, in equal measure. Why terrified? Because you faced one of the darkest wizards in history and defeated him. At 11 years old. Dumbledore shook his head. The prophecy, but no. That's a conversation for another time. Prophecy. Rest, Harry. We'll talk more when you're recovered. Dumbledore stood, moving toward the door. One last thing. The power you displayed in that chamber, the fire, it's nothing I've ever seen before. If you ever wish to discuss it, my door remains open. Harry watched him go. He's going to keep pushing, James said from somewhere nearby. Let him push. He won't find out anything I don't want him to know. Harry lay back against the pillows and closed his eyes. First year wasn't even half over, and he'd already killed a man and driven off a Dark Lord. Things were going to get interesting. Chapter 4, Monsters Recognize Monsters. Harry navigating Slytherin politics while hiding his true nature. Building alliance with Daphne, she approaches him, not the other way around, she's investigating. Troll attack handled very differently. First major display of power that Harry can't hide. Draco's perspective shifts. The Awakened Ones plant an agent at Hogwarts. James reveals more about the Potter bloodline and why the Dragon Soul chose Harry. Ends with Harry deciding to hunt whoever's threatening the school rather than wait to be hunted. Chapter 5, The Mirror shows dragons. Ginny Weasley woke up screaming. Harry held her down while the panic ran its course, keeping his voice low and steady, telling her she was safe, it was over, the diary couldn't hurt her anymore. It took nearly 10 minutes before she stopped thrashing, and another 5 before she could form coherent words. I couldn't stop, her voice cracked. I knew what I was doing and I couldn't stop myself. I tried, Harry, I tried so hard, I know. The roosters. Colin. Nearly headless Nick. She broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. Harry let her cry. There wasn't anything else to do. The girl had been violated in the most fundamental way possible, her mind, her will, her very sense of self compromised by something ancient and evil. No words would fix that. Eventually, the sobs subsided. How did you know? Ginny asked, her voice raw. About the diary. About me. I pay attention. And I had some warnings. Dobby. Harry raised an eyebrow. I remember things. From when when he was controlling me. Ginny shuddered. He talked about the Malfoys. About Lucius giving him to me. He thought it was funny. It won't happen again. Lucius will pay for what he did. How? He's powerful, connected, so am I. Ginny looked at him then. Really looked, with eyes that had seen too much darkness for someone her age. Harry wondered what she saw, the boy who lived. A Slytherin who shouldn't have saved her. Something else entirely. You're not what people think you are, she said quietly. No. Thank you. For saving me. You're welcome. Harry helped her stand. The chamber was quiet now, the basilisk returned to wherever it slept, the torches still burning with their eerie green light. The destroyed diary lay on the stone floor, ink still oozing from the puncture wound like black blood. Can you walk? I think so. Then let's get out of here. The aftermath was complicated. Harry carried Ginny to the hospital wing, spun a carefully edited story about finding her collapsed near the bathroom, and let Madame Pomfrey take over. Within the hour, the castle was in chaos, teachers rushing about, students being counted, Dumbledore issuing statements about the danger being passed. The official story was that the Chamber of Secrets had opened itself due to some lingering enchantment, and that the threat had been neutralized through means that couldn't be publicly discussed. Harry's involvement was minimized, reduced to a footnote about a student finding the victim and alerting authorities. It was exactly what Harry wanted. You could have taken Cr. James observed later that night. Killed a basilisk, destroyed a Horcrux, saved a girl's life. That's the kind of thing that makes legends. Legends attract attention. Attention attracts enemies. Harry was in his bed, staring at the canopy overhead. The awakened ones are already watching me. Voldemort's followers would love to know who destroyed their master's soul fragment. Better to stay in the shadows. And Dumbledore? Dumbledore knows something happened. He's too smart not to suspect my involvement. But suspicion isn't proof, and without proof he can't act. Harry closed his eyes. The dragon's soul hummed contentedly in his chest, satisfied by the night's violence. He'd pushed it harder than ever before, the fire, the strength, the speed. His body ached in ways that even enhanced healing couldn't immediately fix. But he'd won. That was what mattered. The weeks before Christmas were tense. Harry watched Lucius Malfoy's reaction carefully, using Draco as an unwitting source of information. The elder Malfoy was furious, his plan had failed, his artifact destroyed, and he had no idea how or why. He suspected Dumbledore's involvement, suspected some secret faction within the Ministry, suspected everyone except an 11-year-old student. Perfect. Draco, for his part, was shaken by the revelation of his father's scheme. He tried to kill students, Draco said during one of their private conversations. He gave that diary to Ginny Weasley knowing what it would do. Knowing she might die. Yes. I knew my father was, that he had certain beliefs. But this is different. This is murder. Your father served Voldemort. He tortured and killed during the First War. The only reason he's not in Azkaban is money and influence. Harry kept his voice neutral. I'm not telling you what to think about your family. But you should understand exactly who your father is. Draco was quiet for a long moment. What would you do? If you were me? I'd start building something of my own. A power base that doesn't depend on your father's approval or your family's name. Something that's yours, that he can't take away. Like what? Like allies. Connections. People who follow you because of who you are, not who your father is. Harry met Draco's eyes. You've already started. Blaise, Daphne, the other Slytherins who've noticed you pulling away from pure-blood orthodoxy. Build on that. Make yourself indispensable. Indispensable to whom? Harry smiled slightly. To me, for starters. Christmas brought an unexpected development. Harry stayed at Hogwarts over the holiday, as he always did. The castle was nearly empty, most students had gone home, and even some of the teachers had departed for family celebrations. Harry had the Slytherin common room almost to himself. He was sitting by the green-lit windows, watching the lake water shift and move, when Daphne found him. You stayed, she said. I always stay. I know. I checked. She settled into the chair across from him, elegant as always in winter robes of pale blue. I told my parents I was remaining at school for extra study. They weren't pleased. Why did you really stay? Daphne was quiet for a moment, her ice-chip eyes studying him with that calculating intensity he'd come to recognize. Because I wanted to talk to you. Without the others. Without the politics and the positioning and all the games we have to play in public. About what? About you. About what you are. About what you're planning. She leaned forward slightly. I've been thinking about what you showed me on the astronomy tower. The fire, the power, all of it. And I've been thinking about what happened in the chamber. You know about that? I'm not stupid, Potter. The official story is nonsense. You disappear the same night Ginny Weasley is found unconscious near a bathroom that just happens to be directly above where the attacks were originating. Then suddenly the attacks stop, and everyone pretends nothing happened. Her expression hardened. You killed whatever was down there, didn't you? The thing that was petrifying students. Harry considered denying it. Decided against it. Yes. How? I convinced it to back down. Then I destroyed the artifact that was controlling it. The diary. You know about that too. I know Ginny Weasley hasn't let go of a small black book since September, and suddenly she's in the hospital wing with no memory of the last 4 months. Daphne's jaw tightened. I know Lucius Malfoy gave her something in Diagon Alley. Draco wasn't as subtle about his distress as he thought. Harry leaned back in his chair. You're very well informed. Information is power. The Greengrasses have survived centuries of political upheaval by knowing things others don't. She paused. But information only matters if you know how to use it. That's why I'm here. To learn how to use information. To learn what you're really planning. The alliance, the training, the careful accumulation of power, it's all building towards something. I want to know what. Harry was quiet for a long moment. The fire crackled, metaphorically, Slytherin common room fireplaces burned cold green. Outside the windows, something massive moved through the lake water and disappeared. Voldemort is coming back, he finally said. The diary was proof of that. He's found ways to anchor himself to this world, ways that make him nearly impossible to truly kill. When he returns, he'll be stronger than before. More careful. More dangerous. And you plan to stop him. I plan to destroy him. Completely. Along with everyone who serves him willingly. Harry's eyes met hers. But Voldemort isn't the only threat. There are others, older enemies, things that have been hunting the dragon soul for centuries. They're watching me right now, gathering strength, preparing to strike. The Awakened Ones. Harry's expression sharpened. How do you know that name? The Greengrass family keeps extensive records. We've been observers for a very long time, Potter. We know about the dragon soul, about the carriers, about the order that hunted them to extinction. Daphne's voice dropped. We also know they never completely succeeded. There were always rumors that the bloodline survived, hidden among ordinary wizarding families. Waiting. And now you know those rumors were true. Now I know a lot of things. She stood, moving to stand beside his chair, looking down at him with an expression he couldn't quite read. I also know that you're going to need help. Not just political allies or convenient friendships, real help. People who know what you are and choose to stand with you anyway. And you're offering to be one of those people. I'm offering to consider it. Her lips curved slightly. I told you when we first met, dangerous can be useful. I've spent the last year watching you be very, very dangerous. Now I want to know if you're also worth the risk. How do I prove that? Daphne reached into her robes and pulled out a small package, wrapped in silver paper. Happy Christmas, Potter. Harry took the package. Unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a pendant, a small dragon carved from some deep red stone, its eyes tiny chips of gold. He could feel magic radiating from it, old and subtle and somehow familiar. It's a family heirloom, Daphne said. According to Greengrass records, it was given to my ancestor by a carrier, centuries ago. A token of alliance between our houses. She paused. I'm returning it to its rightful owner. Harry held the pendant up to the green-tinged light. The dragon seemed almost alive, its carved scales catching the glow. This is a significant gesture. It's meant to be. Daphne's expression was serious now, all calculation stripped away. I'm betting on you, Harry Potter. On what you are, what you'll become. Don't make me regret it. Harry fastened the pendant around his neck. It settled against his chest, warm against his skin, and the dragon's soul purred in recognition. I won't. Christmas morning brought more surprises. Harry woke to find a package on his bedside table, large, lumpy, wrapped in plain brown paper. There was no note, no indication of who had sent it. He opened it carefully, checking for curses or traps. Inside was a cloak. Silver fabric, impossibly light, that seemed to flow like water through his fingers. Harry recognized it immediately from descriptions in the Potter archives. An invisibility cloak. Not just any cloak, but one of the legendary Deathly Hallows, the cloak of true invisibility, passed down through the Peveril line for generations. That's not possible, James breathed, materializing beside the bed. The cloak was lost. I thought it was destroyed when you died. Dumbledore. He must have had it. James's ghostly face was twisted with complex emotions. He must have taken it from our house after we were killed. And now he's giving it back. There was a note after all, Harry realized. A small scrap of parchment tucked into the folds of the cloak. Your father left this in my possession before he died. It seems right that it should be returned to you. Use it well. No signature. But the handwriting was familiar. Dumbledore. He's making a gesture, Harry said slowly. Returning family property, acknowledging my heritage. Trying to build goodwill. Or trying to keep track of you. The cloak might be enchanted with tracking spells. Harry examined the fabric more closely, extending his senses into its magical structure. The cloak was ancient, powerful, and completely clean, no tracking charms, no monitoring enchantments, nothing except the original magic woven into its creation. It's genuine. Unaltered. Then Dumbledore is either more generous than I gave him CR4, or he's playing a very long game. Probably the latter. Harry wrapped the cloak around his shoulders and watched his body disappear. But I'll take the gift regardless. An invisibility cloak is too useful to refuse out of paranoia. He spent the rest of the morning testing the cloak's capabilities. True to legend, it rendered him completely invisible, not just to sight but to magical detection as well. The dragon's soul's heat signature vanished, his magical aura disappeared, even his scent seemed muted. Perfect for reconnaissance. Perfect for assassination. Perfect for war. The spring term brought new challenges. Lockhart's classes continued to be useless, but Harry found ways to extract value from the situation. The defense professor was a fraud, yes, but he was a fraud with extensive experience in memory charms, his preferred method of stealing others' accomplishments. Harry studied his techniques, learned to recognize the signs of memory manipulation, and filed the knowledge away for future use. The awakened ones were getting bolder. Harry felt their presence more frequently now, cold touches at the edge of his awareness, watchers in shadows that disappeared when he turned to look. They were probing his defenses, testing his reactions, gathering intelligence for an eventual strike. He responded by increasing his training. Nights in the Room of Requirement, a discovery he'd made in late January, following references in the Potter archives. Hours of physical conditioning, magical practice, combat simulation. The dragon's soul responded eagerly, growing stronger with each session, unlocking abilities that Harry had only dreamed about. He could fly reliably now, short bursts of flame-powered propulsion that let him cross the castle in seconds. His flame constructs had become solid enough to serve as weapons, shields, even temporary structures. And his senses had expanded to the point where he could track individual magical signatures across entire floors of the castle. You're approaching the third threshold, James observed one night, watching Harry practice with twin blades made of solidified flame. The second awakening was supposed to take years. You're doing it in months. I don't have years. The awakened ones are moving. Voldemort is out there somewhere, rebuilding. And according to the council, Harry stopped, letting the flame blades dissipate. What about the council? The dreams have been getting more frequent. More urgent. Harry sat down on a conjured bench, running a hand through his sweat-damp hair. They want me to come to them. To present myself for judgment. That's what the old texts described. The summoning, when a carrier reaches sufficient power, the council calls them to account for their actions. I know. But the texts also say that carriers who fail the judgment are consumed. Added to the council's collective consciousness, their individual identity erased. Harry's jaw tightened. I have no intention of letting that happen. Can you refuse the summoning? I don't know. But I'm going to find out. The next dream came that night. Harry found himself in the familiar landscape of endless fire, flames stretching to every horizon, heat that should have been unbearable but felt like a warm embrace. And there, at the center of everything, were the eyes. You have delayed long enough. The voice was like 1,000 furnaces speaking in unison. Harry stood his ground. I have questions before I answer any summons. You dare, I dare because I have to. Harry let his own fire rise, golden light pushing back against the ambient red. You created the dragon soul. You seeded it into human bloodlines. Why? Silence. The great eyes blinked, slowly. We were curious. Curious about what? About potential. About growth. About what your species might become if given the proper tools. The voice had shifted, become almost conversational. We are ancient beyond your comprehension, young carrier. We have watched universes rise and fall. But we have never seen anything quite like humanity, so brief, so fragile, yet so endlessly creative in your destruction and your passion. So we're an experiment. You are a question. One we have been asking for millennia. Can humans transcend their limitations? Can they grow beyond the petty concerns of flesh and mortality? Or will they destroy themselves, as so many species have before? And the judgment? The summoning? Evaluation. We wish to see what you have become. Whether the investment was worthwhile. The eyes seemed almost amused. Those who fail are reclaimed. Their potential reabsorbed into the collective. Those who pass. What happens to those who pass? They become something more. Something that stands between what humans are and what we are. A bridge between mortality and eternity. Harry absorbed this. The implications were staggering. The council wasn't just testing carriers, it was potentially uplifting them. Creating something new. And if I refuse to come? You cannot refuse forever. The power within you will eventually demand release. When it does, you will come to us whether you choose to or not. The only question is whether you arrive as a supplicant or a conquest. I don't like either of those options. Then create a third. The voice sounded almost approving. That is what we hoped you would say. You have 3 years, young carrier. 3 years before the soul demands its reckoning. Use them wisely. The dream began to fade. And Harry Potter, yes. The ones who hunt you. They are older than you know. More dangerous than you imagine. But they are not beyond your ability to destroy. Remember that, when the time comes. Harry woke with the words echoing in his mind. 3 years. 3 years to become strong enough to face the Dragon Council on his own terms. 3 years to deal with Voldemort, the Awakened Ones, and whatever other threats emerged. It wasn't much time. But it would have to be enough. February brought Valentine's Day, and Valentine's Day brought chaos. Lockhart, in his infinite wisdom, had decided to celebrate the holiday by releasing swarms of enchanted dwarves throughout the castle, surly, loot-carrying dwarves who tracked down students and forced them to listen to singing valentines. Harry had avoided 3 of them before lunch. This is absurd, Daphne muttered, ducking behind a pillar as another dwarf waddled past. Who thought this was a good idea? Lockhart. Obviously. Someone should hex him. Someone probably will before the day is over. They were in a fourth-floor corridor, technically heading to Transfiguration, but the dwarf infestation had forced a detour. Harry kept his senses extended, tracking the magical signatures of the little creatures so he could avoid them. Which is why he noticed immediately when something else entered his range. Cold. Ancient. Wrong. He stopped walking. Potter? Daphne turned back, confused. What is it? We have company. The corridor ahead rippled, like heat distortion in reverse. A figure stepped out of nothing, tall, robed in dark cloth, face hidden beneath a deep hood. The magical signature radiating from it was unlike anything Harry had felt before, old, controlled, and absolutely deadly. Harry Potter. The voice was smooth, cultured, completely calm. We've been watching you for some time. I thought it was time we finally met. Awakened one. Very good. You've done your research. The figure inclined its head slightly. My name is Marcus Thane. I am the current leader of our order. And I'm here to offer you a choice. Harry's hands curled at his sides. The dragon's soul was roaring in his chest, demanding release, and it took all his control to hold it back. What kind of choice? The kind that determines whether you live or die. Thane took a step closer. The dragon's soul is an abomination, Mr. Potter. A corruption of the natural order. Every carrier in history has eventually succumbed to its influence, becoming monsters, tyrants, destroyers of everything they once claimed to protect. We exist to prevent that. To end the threat before it grows beyond control. By killing children. By doing what's necessary. Thane's voice held no apology. The soul corrupts slowly, insidiously. It whispers to its carriers, promises power, seduces them with visions of glory. By the time they realize what's happening, it's too late. They've already become the thing they feared. You're assuming I'm like the others. You're assuming you're not. Thane spread his hands. I've been alive for 300 years, Mr. Potter. I've watched carriers rise and fall. I've seen the strongest wills broken, the purest hearts corrupted. The dragon's soul cannot be controlled, it can only be contained or destroyed. And yet here I am. Controlling it just fine. For now. But the power grows. Each threshold you cross, each awakening you achieve, brings you closer to the point of no return. Thane's voice softened slightly. I'm not here to kill you today. I'm here to offer you an alternative. The Order has methods, techniques for suppressing the soul, keeping it dormant indefinitely. You could live a normal life, free from the fire's influence. All you have to do is cooperate. Harry considered the offer. For about half a second. No. I thought you might say that. Thane sighed. Then I'm afraid we'll have to do this the hard way. You have until the summer, Mr. Potter. Get your affairs in order. Say your goodbyes. Because when the term ends, we're coming for you. He stepped backward, and the air rippled around him. Wait, but he was already gone. Vanished like he'd never been there at all. Daphne was staring at Harry, her face pale. That was, the awakened ones. The people who've been hunting my bloodline for 3 centuries. Harry's jaw was tight. And apparently they've decided I'm threat enough to warrant direct contact. What are you going to do? What I've always done. Harry started walking again, toward Transfiguration, toward the normal rhythms of school life that suddenly seemed very far away. Train. Prepare. And when they come, the fire flared in his eyes, just for a moment. Burn them all. The rest of the term passed in a blur of preparation. Harry pushed his training harder than ever before. The room of requirement became his second home, hours spent each night honing abilities that no 12-year-old should possess. Flight, flame manipulation, combat techniques, everything was refined, polished, brought to a level that the awakened ones wouldn't expect. His allies rallied around him. Draco, fully committed now, used his family connections to gather information about the Order, their methods, their resources, their known bases of operation. It wasn't much, but every scrap of intelligence helped. Daphne focused on political preparation, ensuring that if Harry's conflict with the Awakened Ones became public, he would have supporters in the right places. The Greengrass network was extensive, and she used it ruthlessly. Even Hermione contributed, researching everything she could find about the Dragon Soul and its historical carriers. Her ability to absorb and synthesize information was invaluable, and she approached the task with the same intensity she brought to her studies. "You're building an army," James observed one night, watching Harry coordinate his various resources. "A small one, but an army nonetheless." "I'm building a survival mechanism. The Awakened Ones have been operating for centuries, they're not going to be defeated by one person, no matter how powerful." "And after? Assuming you survive the summer?" Harry paused. It was a question he'd been avoiding, focused so intensely on the immediate threat that he hadn't thought much about what came next. "After, I keep going. Voldemort is still out there. The Dragon Council still wants their judgment. And there are probably other threats I haven't even discovered yet." He turned to face his father's ghost. "This is my life now. Fighting. Preparing. Protecting the people who depend on me. That's a heavy burden for anyone, let alone a child. I stopped being a child the night the Dragon Soul woke up." Harry's expression was hard. "Maybe earlier than that, honestly. The cupboard didn't exactly encourage extended childhood." James was quiet for a long moment. "Your mother would be proud of you," he finally said. "And terrified for you, in equal measure. But mostly proud. You never talk about her." "I know. It's difficult." James's form flickered slightly. "She was the best person I ever knew, Harry. Kind, fierce, brilliant. She loved you more than anything in the world. Died protecting you without a second thought. What was she like? Before everything?" James smiled, a rare genuine expression. "She laughed a lot. Even in the middle of the war, even when everything was falling apart around us, she found reasons to laugh. She said it was the only way to stay sane." His voice had gone soft. "She had this way of looking at the world, like she could see the beauty in everything, no matter how ugly it seemed on the surface. I never understood how she did it. I was too angry, too focused on fighting. But Lily, she fought too, harder than anyone. She just never let the darkness consume her." Harry absorbed this. A mother who laughed in the face of despair. A mother who saw beauty in ugliness. A mother who died with love on her lips and fire in her heart. He wished he could have known her. "The Awakened Ones killed people like her," he said quietly. "Carriers' families, friends, anyone connected to the Dragon Soul. They destroyed entire bloodlines to stop what they feared. Yes. I'm not going to let them do that again. Not to me, not to anyone else." Harry's eyes blazed gold for a moment. "When I face them this summer, I'm not just fighting for myself. I'm fighting for everyone they've hurt. Everyone they've killed. Every carrier who never got the chance to prove that the Dragon Soul could be something more than a curse. That's a lot of weight to carry. Then I'll carry it." Harry turned back to his planning. "That's what being a Potter means, isn't it? Carrying what others can't." James didn't respond. But his expression, visible only to Harry, was full of something that might have been pride. The mirror of Eriste was hidden in an unused classroom on the 5th floor. Harry found it by accident, exploring the castle during one of his late-night training sessions. The moment he stepped through the door, he felt the magic, old, powerful, and somehow hungry. The mirror itself was massive, gilded, with an inscription around the frame that Harry couldn't quite read. He looked into the glass. And saw himself standing over a pile of corpses. Voldemort. Lucius Malfoy. Marcus Thane. The Awakened Ones. Everyone who had ever threatened him, everyone who had ever hurt someone he cared about, all of them dead at his feet. And Harry, the reflection Harry, was smiling, his eyes blazing with golden fire, his hands still dripping with their blood. The deepest desire of your heart, James said quietly. That's what the mirror shows. I want them dead. Harry's voice was flat. All of them. Not for power, not for glory. Just, dead. So they can't hurt anyone else. That's a dangerous desire. I know. Harry tore his gaze away from the mirror. But it's honest. I'm not here to be a hero, Dad. I'm not interested in redemption arcs or showing mercy to people who don't deserve it. I want to end threats. Permanently. The dragon soul, this isn't the dragon soul. This is me. Harry met his father's ghostly eyes. The fire didn't make me want to destroy my enemies. It just gave me the power to actually do it. James was silent for a long moment. I looked in that mirror once, he finally said. Back when I was a student here. Do you know what I saw? What? My family. All of us together, my parents, Lily, you as a baby. All of us safe and happy, the war over, Voldemort defeated. James's voice cracked slightly. I wanted peace, Harry. More than anything. I wanted a world where my son could grow up without fear. I'm sorry you didn't get it. I'm sorry too. But, James paused, seemed to gather himself. But looking at you now, seeing what you've become. I think maybe the universe gave me something better than peace. It gave me a son who could actually make the world safer. Who could do what I never could. Harry turned back to the mirror. His reflection was still there, still standing among the dead, still smiling with those burning eyes. I'm not sure better is the right word. Neither am I. But it's something. James's form flickered. Come on. We should get back before someone notices you're missing. Harry took one last look at the mirror, at the future he wanted, the future he might achieve, and walked away. The corpses of his enemies would have to wait. For now. Exams came and went. Harry scored highest in every subject, maintaining his position as the top student in his year. The achievement meant nothing to him except as camouflage, a normal student pursuing normal academic goals, nothing special to see here. The last day of term arrived gray and cold. Harry stood in the entrance hall, trunk packed, waiting for the carriages that would take students to the station. His allies were gathered around him, Draco, Daphne, Blaise, all prepared for a summer of conflict. You'll contact us if anything happens? Draco asked for the third time. You'll know. One way or another. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. Harry looked at each of them in turn. Thank you. All of you. For standing with me when you didn't have to. We're Slytherins, Daphne said. We don't do anything without calculating the benefits first. You just happen to be a very good investment. Is that all I am? Her expression softened, just slightly. No. But that's a conversation for when you're not about to go to war. The carriages arrived. Students piled in, chattering about summer plans and vacation destinations, oblivious to the tension among the Slytherin second years. Harry climbed into a carriage with his friends. Watched Hogwarts recede in the distance, the castle that had become as close to home as he'd ever known. He would see it again. He would make sure of that. The train ride back to London was quiet. Harry sat in his usual compartment, surrounded by allies who had run out of things to say. The countryside rolled past outside the windows, green and peaceful and utterly at odds with what waited at the end of the journey. Hermione found him halfway through the trip. Can I talk to you alone? Harry nodded. They stepped into the corridor, finding a quiet spot between carriages where the noise of the train covered their words. I've been thinking, Hermione said. About everything you've told me. About the dragon soul, the awakened ones, all of it. And I want to help. Really help, not just research and moral support. Her jaw was set in that stubborn way Harry had come to recognize. I know I'm not magical like you. I'm just a muggle-born witch with too many books. But there has to be something I can do. Hermione, don't tell me it's too dangerous. I know it's dangerous. I've known since you showed me the fire. Her eyes were fierce. You need people who can think, Harry. Plan. See angles you might miss because you're too close to everything. Let me be that for you. Harry considered. She was right, he did need thinkers, strategists, people who could complement his more direct approach. And Hermione was brilliant, possibly the smartest person he knew. The awakened ones are coming for me this summer, he said. If I survive, we can talk about how you can help. If I don't, you will. You have to. Her voice broke slightly. You're the only person who's ever treated me like an equal, Harry. Not a muggle-born curiosity, not a show-off who reads too much. An equal. I'm not losing that. Harry reached out and touched her shoulder. I'll try my best not to die. How's that? It's a start. She wiped her eyes quickly, embarrassed by the emotion. Be careful. And send word when you can. I will. She disappeared back into the train. Harry stood alone in the corridor for a moment, letting the weight of everything settle. Friends. Allies. People who cared whether he lived or died. A year ago, he'd had nothing. No one except James's ghost and the fire in his chest. Now he had reasons to survive beyond simple stubbornness. He wasn't sure if that made things easier or harder. King's Cross Station was crowded with families reuniting. Harry walked through the chaos with his trunk floating behind him, eyes scanning for threats. The awakened ones had given him until summer, but summer was a vague deadline, and he didn't trust them to wait for some arbitrary date. Vernon was waiting at the pickup area, face purple with barely suppressed irritation. Get in the car, he grunted. And no funny business on the way home. Harry got in the car. The drive back to Privet Drive was silent. Vernon didn't speak, Harry didn't see any reason to start a conversation. The Dursleys had learned their lesson years ago, they left him alone, and in return he didn't burn down their house. It was a functional arrangement, if not a pleasant one. Number 4 looked exactly as it always had. Boring. Normal. The perfect camouflage for a child who was anything but. Harry carried his trunk up to his room. Closed the door. Sat on his bed and let out a long breath. Home sweet home, James said sarcastically. For now. Harry looked around the small room, the peeling wallpaper, the broken desk, the window that looked out on nothing. It won't be for much longer. One way or another, this summer changes everything. The awakened ones. And after them, whatever comes next. I can't keep living like this, hiding what I am, pretending to be normal. Sooner or later, everything's going to come into the open. The only question is whether I control the revelation or it controls me. What are you planning? Harry lay back on his bed. Stared at the familiar ceiling. First, I survive the awakened ones. Then I start building something real, not just a network of allies, but actual power. Resources. Infrastructure. A foundation for whatever war comes next. That sounds like a lot for a 12-year-old. I'm not planning to do it all at once. But I need to start thinking long-term. The Dragon Council gave me 3 years before the summoning. That's not much time. No. It's not. Harry closed his eyes. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tomorrow, he would start preparing for the confrontation that would determine whether he lived or died. But tonight, he would rest. Tomorrow's fires could wait. Chapter 6, fire meets fire. Harry goes after Quirrell alone. The traps meant for a child meet something far more dangerous. Confrontation with Voldemort's wraith. Harry's dragon soul fully manifests for the first time. Battle that destroys the underground chambers. Voldemort flees but promises return. The cost of power, Harry's transformation was witnessed. Dumbledore knows something is very different about this Harry. The awakened ones accelerate their timeline. Ends with Harry standing in the ruins, realizing this was just the beginning. Chapter 7, The Dragon Wakes. Aftermath and Setup for the Future. Harry's reputation shifts, fear mixed with awe. Political fallout from the chamber's destruction. Daphne fully commits to alliance with Harry. Lucius Malfoy takes notice. James reveals the truth about the Awakened Ones and the war that's coming. Harry receives a message from the Dragon Council, he's been summoned. Draco makes an unexpected choice. Year ends with Harry knowing that Hogwarts was never the real battlefield. The real war is just beginning. Final scene, somewhere in Eastern Europe, the Awakened One's leadership convenes. The dragon soul has returned. This time, they won't fail to destroy it. Ready to begin Chapter 1 when you give the word. Now.